So hello, welcome. We'll kind of let people filter in as they do, but thank you, all of you, for coming this morning. It's not easy to give up a Saturday morning, especially after you've worked all week, and I'm sure you're exhausted. So thank you. Thank you for being here. I do promise that you will leave here with a lot of really amazing tools, and you'll get to meet these amazing women of PSI that literally sucked me in. I met them at a training a few years ago and I just couldn't get enough. I loved these women and I'm just honored to be part of their tribe. So thank you for coming. I'm going to start the slideshow. And here we are. Oh, there we go. I hope you all can see that. Let's see. I want just me. Hold on. Here we go. Okay. What is going on? All right. So here we are. Perinatal support group facilitator training. Again, thank you for coming. I just really quickly wanted to mention that if you're a doula and you need your doula certificate, to just email me and I can get that to you. I have it in hand and I can get that for you if you need it. In regards to the CEUs, same thing, we'll figure all that out kind of after the training. And also real quick, I just wanted to just touch on the fact of today's date. It's 9/11. And I think it's one of those dates that we just cannot ever forget. It's something that all of us experienced in such a different way, but it kind of unified a lot of us because we all felt the same feelings. So with the 20th anniversary of 9/11, I'd just like to take a quick minute, just a moment to just touch on the significance of today and remember all of those who've been affected by 9/11. So we're just going to do a quick just moment right now. Okay, thank you. All right. So here we go. I'm finding it very weird that I can only see me and none of you, but I guess that's okay. So today, this is kind of our order that we're going to go in. So we're going to do introductions, who we are, introduction to PSI, who we help, and we're kind of go through this list. There is a break built in, but, obviously feel free to get up and, if you need to do things, go ahead. We will have a Q&A session at the end. So if you have questions as we're going through some of this stuff, maybe jot them down so that at the end we can kind of all sit and talk. We'll go back to the grid view and we can do questions. So in regards to introductions for you guys, it's really important, I think, to kind of know who's in this group for your purposes. If you plan on starting a group and you might have another person in this training that's in the same area starting a group, it's really nice to know that, and you can kind of join together, maybe be someone else's co-facilitator. So if you would like, you can share your name, where you currently live, and where you plan to host a support group, and you can put that with your email address in the chat. And what I'll do is I will copy that list and put it into a document and get it to all of you after this training so that you guys kind of for networking purposes and also just to know who was here. You do not have to do that, but I just find it very helpful. When I started my first support group, my co-facilitator was someone I attended the training with, so it was awesome. And you can do that throughout. I'm going to copy and paste that at the end. All right, so who am I? I'm Sarah Dufresne. I am the support group committee chair. I kind of touched a little bit on how I got affiliated with PSI, but I attended a training back in 2018, this very training. And I went I don't know why it says 18 and 17. Sorry about that. But then I went on and created my own group in Mansfield, Connecticut called Out of the Blue. And since then, I'm a climb leader, which Jen will tell you a little bit more about the climb out of the darkness. I'm a support coordinator here in Connecticut, which is another role that PSI plays. And I sit on the board for PSI CT as their support group committee chair. I'm a mom. I went to UConn. I live in Mansfield, right near UConn. And I work with little kiddos. So that's kind of my bio. And if you ever have any questions, ever want to reach out, please feel free to email me. And we're going to pass along here.
Hi, everyone. I'm Martha Adams. Very excited to be here. I am a mom of 4 kiddos ranging in age from 18 to 4 for 7 more days, and he'll be 5. And I started, I became involved with PSI when I was pregnant with my Sammy, and I had already been a therapist, a mental health professional for 5 years, and wanted to look for more information on perinatal mental health. It was not something that we talked about much in grad school. I don't even think there was a chapter. I think I asked a question in grad school about postpartum depression because that's all I knew about at the time. And I came across this training, Components of Care, through PSI. It was in North Carolina. I was pregnant and it was on my birthday, but I was like, I want to do this. And luckily my sister lived fairly close to UNC at the time. And so I stayed with her, and I met Jen Vendetti there, and we have amazing memories of it. Came back and have been part of this amazing group of professionals, non-professionals, moms, dads. It's not just women. We have a couple men involved as well. And since then, and it's grown. At that time, we were the Alliance, and we're now a chapter, the first chapter of PSI. And that's enough. But I'm really, really happy to be here. I've been privileged to be part of this training for the last 4 years, and excited for the day. Thank you.
Hi, I'm Sharon. I'm a perinatal psychologist. You can read more about what I do and what I've done on the little slide. But basically, I'm a co-founder of PSI Connecticut chapter, and I have been involved. Annie and I were probably the original members of the support group committee, maybe you, Marie, Martha as well. But we have had this passion for helping moms. You know, I've had this passion for helping moms more than 20 years. So I'm looking forward to talking with you and sharing what we can do to help support you as you support moms and dads.
Morning, everybody. I can only see Sharon. That's whatever. I'm Annie Keating-Scher. I'm so happy to be here. I, like Sharon said, am one of the founding members of PSI Connecticut, the former support group committee chair. Sarah is doing such an awesome job. And one of the founders of the Adjustment to Baby Challenges support group, which has been going on for 7.5 years without stopping since my now almost 9-year-old was 1. And we're going to talk more about that today, but it's, again, such an honor to be here. And I'm just so excited we can do this virtually. It's been sad to not be able to do the training for the last couple of years. So this is going to be super cool.
And Amanda, she's actually not here, but I just wanted to mention, because you will meet her. She did a video that we will show later on. And she is a volunteer facilitator. She helps with the ABC group, and she's a PSI CT member, but she's awesome. But wanted to cover her bio real quick.
Good morning, everyone. I'm Jennifer Vendetti. I'm a maternal child social worker and parent educator. I, along with my colleagues here today, am a co-founder of PSI Connecticut. I love group work. I'm passionate about group work. I facilitate several groups through our home visiting grant. And I'm a mom of two. I have a COVID puppy. And I'm so excited to begin our training by talking with you and offering you a bit of history of Postpartum Support International and PSI Connecticut chapter. So welcome. Let's get started. Jane Honickman, who you see pictured here with Dr. Sharon Thomason in 2017, came to Connecticut to help us build infrastructure so that we could come together as a state and start to fill some of the gaps in social support and treatment and awareness. Jane Honickman is a California mom with a remarkable transition to motherhood story. What she discovered through her transition to motherhood was a lack of social support. And Jane believed deeply in the power of social support, individual support, as well as group. Okay, so those services became the foundation of the organization that she founded in 1987, Postpartum Support International. And all of us on this training team are so eager for you to come to know PSI as we have, to be part of the PSI family. And I hope that at some point, if you haven't done so already, you're going to explore a little bit more deeply who we are as an organization and as a chapter organization. So PSI is now a global network of individuals and organizations, okay? The mission is to promote awareness, prevention, and treatment of maternal mental health issues related to childbearing in every community worldwide. And you'll hear a little bit about how we do that. As Martha said, Connecticut was the first state in the nation to become a chapter of PSI, okay? And some of our history began, as Martha and Sharon talked about, the Alliance. We had this group of women who were passionate about perinatal mental health. We didn't even have all of the language that we have now, right? We didn't even have all of the vocabulary. We wanted to make connections, and we were each in our communities trying to figure out how we were going to impact something that we saw was just an incredible sadness that families were transitioning without a safety net of support, okay? In 2015, we held the first formal training on perinatal mood and anxiety disorders in the state of Connecticut. That training is PSI's signature training called Components of Care. It's a beautiful 2-day event that helps build a foundation of understanding of PMADs, okay? We started as a chapter, first one, in 2016, okay? Now, Sarah, if you can click on that link there, and I can actually ask you permission too, so I can do that as well. Let's see if we click there, if it will bring us over to the chapter's site. It may not. If it doesn't, you'll be receiving the slides and you can click on the hyperlinks.
Hold on, I don't know what's going on here.
It's okay. It's okay. But you will see. I'll give away
There
the
we go.
surprise.
Oh, it's not showing. Oh, I know why.
It's okay. If you can't get to it, it's all right.
Okay, yeah.
I can.
It's showing on my screen, but it's not showing on yours. But hold on one second. I'm going to stop sharing and then I'm going to reshare. So hold on one second. There we go.
Okay. On the PSI website that I'm going to invite you to explore at a later time, there is a page dedicated to chapters. Look at this map. We now have 44 states in the US that have a chapter. That means that there's infrastructure, right? It means that there's PSI coordinators, right? It means that there are a board of directors, active committees. It means that there's support groups and infrastructure for support groups, okay? This is exciting. So all of us here in this meeting this morning are part of this history. So thank you. Thank you. Thanks, Sarah. Appreciate that. So for Jane, social support was the essence of what families need during pregnancy, at the time of birth, and postpartum. It's what they need when they experience loss. It's what they need when they experience birth trauma. Okay. And I will share with you from Dr. Cindy Dennis, who wrote in 2007, the role that social support plays in prevention, intervention, and treatment during pregnancy in the first postpartum year is based on research from cultural anthropology, psychology, sociology, nursing, and medicine. This research consistently has demonstrated that the lack of social support is an important modifiable risk factor for postpartum depression. And Dr. Kathleen Kendall Tackett wrote, in general, parents with high levels of support are more satisfied with their babies, their roles, and with their lives overall, and are less likely to develop perinatal mood and anxiety disorders. So Jane's mission was to grow social support network, to help communities build these networks and meet the universal needs of perinatal mothers. The signature services of PSI are the PSI coordinators, of which now there are hundreds across the country. We have 11 PSI coordinators here in the state of Connecticut, and recently welcomed our first bilingual English-Spanish coordinator. Okay, there's the website there. There's so much information that's going to help in addition to this training, and your connection with PSI Connecticut is going to give you the holding environment to help you in this work. The helpline is oftentimes the first place that families will go for support. And from there, the helpline coordinator will connect a family to the local state coordinators, okay? What we do is provide emotional support and resources to support groups, to treatment and care, okay, to play groups, etc., to home visiting, okay. PSI also has a provider directory, and we welcome any of you with practice, doula practice, psychotherapy practice, to please put your practice information in that directory. I talked about the components of care training. So these are trainings at the national level that are available. And then we have trainings at the chapter level as well. And you're attending one today. PSI also has on their website, Bertie Myers, who was our original trainer, has a complimentary maternal mental health training available. And there's a date coming up. The September one is passed, but there's one coming up in December. Sarah talked about Climb Out of the Darkness. This is now a worldwide event that occurs on the solstice every year. So a date in June is marked. And it's an opportunity for families and advocates and providers to come together to acknowledge and symbolize the challenges, the suffering, the pain, and the overcome of perinatal mood and anxiety disorders. So typically it comes in the form of a walk or a hike. And this year we had 6 Climb Out of the Darkness events in Connecticut. PSI has several programs, including the Perinatal Mental Health Alliance for People of Color and a free perinatal psychiatry consultation line. All of the services that are offered through PSI and PSI Connecticut are free, always, okay? Thanks, Sarah. PSI has national as well as state membership, okay? We are governed by a board of directors and committees that include our membership committee, resources and professional development, support groups, of course, fundraising and events, and communications. I talked a little bit about the PSI coordinators. We have our own Connecticut webpage, and you can see the PSI coordinators. And you can see, and this image here on the right is a hyperlink to our PSI Connecticut webpage. We're active in all the major social media outlets. And that page will bring you to the Connecticut page. All the support groups are listed there, okay, in calendar view and in list view. Our mission is to grow support groups statewide. We've already made incredible gains in this area, and we're so happy to continue to identify and build relationship with others who understand the value of social support, right? It's important to understand that the majority of moms and dads often are not going to be connected to psychotherapy and or medication treatment. It's social support that provides the safety net and links families to the healing process. We are embarking this year on an initiative called the OBGYN Outreach and Education Initiative. This is our very first grant at the chapter level. So we're looking forward to spreading the word across the large OBGYN systems in Connecticut. And we hope that you will join us in membership, and perhaps on September 26th, you will join us for our member celebration event, which is an annual event. You are always welcome in December to come to our annual open board meeting. And if you'd like to learn more about PSI Connecticut, you can contact Sarah or myself or any of the trainers. This is a photo you'll see and recognize. Amanda is there. Sharon is there. Jane is there. Our current board president is there. Annie's there. Martha's there. And we were gathered to start to talk about how we can really cultivate a holding environment of perinatal mental health advocates, support group leaders, providers, and families in Connecticut. The universal message, which I want you to cement in your mind, body, and soul, is that every family should feel that they are not alone. They're not to blame when they experience emotional and psychological distress, and that they will be well. Our job is to cultivate hope through whatever work that we're doing with families. You're not alone. You're not to blame. You will be well. When you get a moment, I would strongly encourage you to read Jane's chapter on social support. Jane Honickman has her own website, and she's got several books that I think you would appreciate. I'm Listening and Community Support for New Families. And this chapter is poignant to today's training. Thank you, everyone. Good to be with you.
Thank you, Jen. All right.
Hello, Martha again. Thank you so much, Jen. All right. So who do we want to help and why? Today, we're here for a very specific reason to support and talk about support groups for pregnant and postpartum moms. Certainly, we know that partners and dads and siblings and babies, the whole family can use some extra support during that perinatal period, but we're here specifically to talk about pregnant and postpartum moms. Moms that might fit a clinical diagnosis for a PMAD and moms that might not. But we know that that transition to parenthood can be challenging, and that challenge can take people by surprise because we don't talk about it enough globally, socially. And so that's who we're here for today. Maybe think about if there's a specific who that propelled you here today. Thanks, Sarah. The next question is why? The who was a little bit easier. Not that the why is not easy, but there's a lot of whys. Why? Because moms are alone and feel isolated often. And because there's barriers to getting the support that they need. The biggest one that always pops out to me is that should. I should only talk to my partner about these struggles. I shouldn't talk to anybody about these struggles. I shouldn't have these struggles. I shouldn't need support outside of my family. I should have my village already. My village should look a certain way. It should only involve my immediate family or my biological family. There's so many shoulds about that transition to parenthood that it becomes a huge barrier. I mean, personally, I think the word should is a barrier in and of itself anywhere, but it's a huge barrier during this perinatal time. So that's a big one. We have a little list here, but I know you guys can all think of more barriers that pop up that happen for families as well. Additionally, the numbers tell us we need support for moms. 15% of women are going to experience significant depression following childbirth and 10% during pregnancy. 1 in 7 women, that's a huge number. And it goes on. Women who are going to experience anxiety. We know often too that it's not typically one or the other, that they go hand in hand, depression and anxiety. So great, yay. There's a good chance that a mom you know is experiencing both. We know that these percentages are even higher for populations that struggle with poverty, for women of color, for teen moms. They can be twice as high for teen moms. So the numbers continue to tell us. I just want to point out on this bottom bullet here that postpartum psychosis is very rare. I'll talk about it a little bit more when we talk about symptoms also, but 1 to 2 out of every 1,000 deliveries will experience, 1 to 2 out of every 1,000 moms who deliver will experience postpartum psychosis. It's very rare, and it's also even more rare that you would experience that in a support group, because typically these moms are not seeking support because of the nature of psychosis, and are going to need a much higher level of care. They're going to need a level of care more than support. But we'll talk about that a little bit more. Also, it happens very early onset, typically in those first 2 weeks. Thanks, Sarah. So if everyone can grab a pen and a piece of paper or a notebook, even if you may have done this already, it might be a good little exercise. to think about these questions, to think about your why. Maybe think about that who that I asked you to bring to mind in the who we're here to help. But, you know, what got you thinking about a support group for moms? Why did seeing this advertisement for this training propel you to click register? Or someone mentioning it to you? Why do you think someone mentioned it to you? If it was mentioned to you, what's your why? Does your own experience tie into your why? I know my own lived experience is a huge why for me. And it's why when only one mom shows up to the group, it's worth it. It's also why when I sit there, and I have done this in an empty room for an hour and a half to wait the whole time, my why, the impact of support on me is what gets me through that empty room for that whole group time, because a mom might come in the last 5 minutes, or she might not, but I was there. Sometimes that's important to me to remember. So think about your own experience too, or with someone close to you that you know. And then additionally, think about what you have to give to a support group. What's realistic for you right now? I didn't become involved in facilitating a support group till my youngest was 2 years old, 2.5 years old, I think. And remember, I have a lot of kids. There's a long range there. I benefited from support groups, but it took a long time for me to be in the right space, to have the time and the support I needed socially to have childcare when I was facilitating the support group. So what's realistic for you? It doesn't have to be that you take this training and I'm off to the races and I'm starting a support group tomorrow. It might be, and that's wonderful, but it might also not be. It might be in a year or 2 years or 6 months. It might be when you find a co-facilitator. What is realistic for you? Do you think you have an hour a week, or an hour a month, or an hour every 3 months? Write that down, what you think you have to commit right now. And then write down a couple of the skills you think that you bring to the table. What are your strengths? And what skills might you want to improve upon, work on, develop? That can also be really helpful in looking for a co-facilitator, because it's nice to balance, to support each other, to learn from each other, and help each other build skills. All right, look at that beautiful, beautiful belly and baby. So let's take a closer look at PMADS. You might already be really familiar with PMADS. You might have some idea about mood and anxiety disorders, but not super familiar with the term PMADS or mood and anxiety disorders at all. And that's all okay. You are not going to need to diagnose anybody in a support group. That's not your job, but we like to go through just a really brief overview of the symptoms of perinatal mood and anxiety disorder, so you have an idea of what someone might be experiencing in your group. So PMADS, or perinatal mood and anxiety disorders, are mood and anxiety disorders that occur during pregnancy or the first year postpartum. And that's what perinatal refers to. Specifically, the definition of perinatal is from conception to 1 year postpartum. But we know that PMADS can last far past that 12-month postpartum date. It's not a magic date that means your PMADS are cut off. Much like when baby turns 12 months, that's not a magic. Their birthday isn't a magic day that means they can digest milk great on that day. So I don't know, that's how I always think about it. A lot of the factors that play a role in how long a mom might experience a PMAD are on onset, date of onset, and date of receiving treatment, seeking out for support or seeking out additional treatment for the PMAD, whether mom wants to breastfeed and breastfeeds or not, when mom, if she's breastfeeding, when she weans, all of these things can play a role in duration of symptoms. So, you know, you might have a mom that has, she was 6 months into her pregnancy and all of a sudden realizing, I don't feel like myself, or maybe not realizing, but maybe partner or family member is saying, you're not like yourself. You know, what's going on? People around her are asking her the question. And then it might be, you know, in the 3rd trimester, or it could be 6 months postpartum. I know personally with my 8-year-old, I was really cognizant of symptoms. And it wasn't until she was about 7 months postpartum that I realized I'd probably been having symptoms for a month. And was able to seek out specific support for that. So it can really, even when you're cognizant of it, it can still take you by surprise. And there isn't, you know, a timeline that like, okay, well, if I haven't experienced a symptom by now, I'm in the clear. So sometimes the fact that these symptoms can come from left field can be a struggle, can be really frustrating and jarring. I love this quote from Jane that these mood and anxiety disorders can affect people at any time during their lives. So true, right? However, there's a marked increase in prevalence of these disorders during pregnancy and postpartum period. That's another why, because I mean, that's what the statistics show us, right? This marked increase in prevalence. And the other piece is that with that increase in prevalence, excuse me, there's additional implications because it's 2 people now we're talking about affected by the PMAD. Sarah, if you can pop to the next slide, we'll take a quick look at the symptoms. And you guys are going to get, I know, like Sarah said, you guys are going to have these slides also of the statistics too, like that can be helpful. Some people really resonate with numbers. I'm not one of them, but if they do, you're going to have all this. So we don't need to go through this line by line, but I do think it's important to talk about a couple things. You know, a lot of people hear about the baby blues and know about the baby blues and will even be dismissive about someone experiencing symptoms of depression, saying like, it's just the baby blues, like you'll get over it. And the baby blues are very, very common, as is depression, but the baby blues duration and intensity typically are really shortly after birth and last no more than 3 to 4 weeks. When we are seeing mom experiencing these symptoms more intensely and for a longer period of time, we're really looking at postpartum depression rather than baby blues. So that's kind of helpful to know. And important, I think, too, to remember not to invalidate somebody's experience, whether she is experiencing baby blues or depression, letting her label what's happening for her and listening. Again, we know depression and anxiety can go hand in hand. We often see them together, or mom kind of oscillating back and forth between thoughts that might be more depressive and thoughts that might fall more in the realm of anxiety. We know OCD symptoms can include these repetitive, intrusive images and thoughts, these scary thoughts that are really ego dystonic. So they can bring so much guilt and shame to a mom because they don't align with what she wants, with what she values, with what she believes, with what she feels. But they come and they're strong and they're real. they feel real. They can be vivid. Like I said, they can be images, not just thoughts, and they can come out of the blue. You're having a great day, and then all of a sudden, wham! So that, man, just can knock you off your feet. But we know that they're anxious in nature. They're not delusional thoughts and images, and they have low risk of being acted upon. In fact, mom will often go to great lengths to avoid whatever that thought is surrounding. Maybe mom is having an scary, intrusive thought about the stairs. And I won't go into more detail because no one needs to borrow anyone else's scary thoughts. But that makes mom stay upstairs all day while partner's away at work. She doesn't go downstairs for more water when her water bottle's empty. She doesn't go downstairs for food, to answer the door. That, that has major implications for mom's health and for baby's health. And it's scary. And now these scary thoughts are impacting my daily life. So while they have low risks of being acted upon, women can go to great lengths to avoid acting upon them, if you will, if that makes sense. PTSD, post-traumatic stress disorder, can be something mom experiences in the perinatal period, even if, if the trauma is past and she has done work and has healed from it. Often labor and delivery can trigger past traumas, especially sexual traumas or physical abuse. And that can, again, that's something that we don't talk about a lot. So that can become really disturbing to think, to have done this work and feel healed. And then wham, at this time where I'm doing this massive physical, emotional, mental thing, delivering a baby, laboring a baby. And now I'm re-experiencing this traumatic event. Additionally, we know that labor and delivery itself could be a traumatic event. And mom can often have those intrusive re-experiences of labor and delivery, and going, holding this inside, isolating from family, not talking about it, just exasperates it. But that's often what happens for mom. Bipolar 1 and 2, really briefly, I'll just talk quickly about the big difference is that bipolar 1 someone with bipolar 1 will experience an episode of mania in addition to major depressive episodes. And mania is going to have more intense symptoms and lasting for a longer period of time than hypomania, which is what we see with someone experiencing bipolar 2. So less intense symptoms, shorter period of time for bipolar 2 in terms of the mania. Both include episodes of major depressive disorder. All right, and psychosis. So psychosis is where these scary thoughts, and often hallucinations and delusions are egosyntonic, not ego-dystonic. So mom believes what the delusions that she's having or the hallucinations. Often this includes insomnia, confusion, disorientation. Also, these symptoms can wax and wane. So mom can appear and feel normal and interact and just as she always does for periods of time in between these psychotic symptoms. It always requires intervention and support in hospital. Often, I'm not going to say always, I don't know. Most often hospitalization, always intervention and a high level of support for moms experiencing psychosis. All right, so is it just pregnancy or is it a PMAD? Here's the thing, when we're pregnant, wild and crazy things are happening in our bodies. And our hormones are fluctuating all over the place. Shortly after, at some point between, at the end of our first trimester, beginning of our second trimester, our placenta is developed and taking over hormone production, and things are shifting and changing so massively in our bodies. It's amazing and wonderful and fabulous, and can lead us to be very labile and teary and moody. But a mom experiencing a PMAD is not going to come back to her baseline. She's going to have more of a persistent mood shift, more intense anxiety that remains. Mom in pregnancy, her self-esteem is going to be pretty much the same as pre-pregnancy. She might have some questions about her changing body and feel, some different ways about her expanding body. But her self-esteem is strong, and a mom experiencing a PMAD is going to struggle with some low self-esteem, with that shame and guilt about what's going on, about how she's feeling. Sleep is a big one, because, wow, that changes again throughout pregnancy at different stages. Whether it's the discomfort of our tender breasts, can't sleep on our belly in the beginning, or waking frequently to urinate, or not urinate, but just because we have the sensation that we think we need to urinate. Making sure we're sleeping on the proper side of our body and using all the right pillows in all the right places, having heartburn. All of those things can interrupt sleep when we're pregnant. But we can get to sleep, and we can get some good sleep. Mom experiencing a PMAD is often struggling to get any good sleep. She's waking at all hours and not being able to fall back asleep, no matter how she shifts or turns. And often, if she's experiencing anxiety, some of the ruminating thoughts might be just swirling around and present for hours, making it difficult for her to get restorative sleep. That's the big one. She's not getting restorative sleep. During pregnancy, there was no suicidal ideation. And that can be a part of PMADs. That's also a good distinguishing factor. If suicidal ideation is pregnant, mom's experiencing a PMAD and she needs additional support. Energy during pregnancy, certainly that waxes and wanes. But big difference is that rest restores. Mom experiencing a PMAD often is not finding restorative rest. When she is resting, it's not restoring. And then pleasure. And new growing families, moms newly pregnant or in the last stages of pregnancy are going to worry. That's normal. But they also have hope and anticipation and can find joy. They take joy, maybe in some new things, maybe things that they used to find enjoyable aren't so enjoyable anymore. Oftentimes, smells and food that they used to enjoy during pregnancy. Anyone who's been pregnant probably can think of 3 things that, like, oh, I could not stand that during pregnancy. And so that's normal. But a mom experiencing a PMAD is often, very often, gonna have great difficulty finding joy in anything that she used to find joy in, or in trying new things. There's often numbness and lack of pleasure. So we collected some thoughts that we've all heard from moms in support groups. This is not specific to experiencing a PMAD or not. These are just thoughts that we hear that are, again, another part of our why. Why? Because a mom has a thought that she's not a good mom because she's not happy. That mom needs support and deserves support. the thought that this is supposed to be the best time of my life. All of these thoughts. And I know that you guys can add to this list. The list could just go on and on. I'll just share one that I was talking about my Lila when I experienced postpartum depression and anxiety with her at around 6-7 months old. And I remember that it was at 7 months old in July, this thought was what made me realize that I was really struggling, and I had been struggling for a few weeks. My sister came over, and I don't even know the circumstances of where everybody else was, why my husband and my older son weren't there. Maybe they had gone to school and work or something. And I don't remember why she stopped by even, but I was having a hard moment and I was crying on the couch. And all I could think of when she came in, and she was kneeling on the floor next to me, and Lila was on the floor crying too, was that she should take her. She was a better mom. She would be a better mom for Lila. She had 3 older girls than Lila, and she should take her. I told her to take her. And that thought for me was my realization, like, all right, I need some extra support here. So if you know a thought like that of your own or someone else's, I think for my sister, that she had never experienced a PMAD. For her, that was a moment that she remembers. I know, and she would probably write this down as part of her why, that thought. So if that comes to you, if you have a moment like that, write that on that note card that you started earlier, because that's important. And I think Annie is going to talk. I can't remember, Annie or Sharon is going to talk a little bit more later when we're talking about our support groups and how sometimes we'll have one person show up or no mom show up, how this why sustains us and keeps us going. And I have no doubt that these whys are why the ABC support group has been running non-stop for 7 years, because of these whys. So, all right. I'm getting a little emotional. Here's a clip. I don't know if we can get it, but if Sarah can show you, oh, look at that. It's a great little clip. I'll let it speak for itself. I'm going to pass along to Sharon, I think.
Thank you, Martha. What an awesome job. That clip always gets to me. It really does such a beautiful job showing what it's like for many, many moms. I read once that we breathe in 20% oxygen and we breathe out 15%. So providing support is as natural as breathing. We humans evolved to crave connection, to feel safe when we have others who literally have our back. That's what our support groups are about. Especially during the past year and a half, just about everyone learned the heavy price we pay for isolation. This isn't really new for postpartum moms. I experienced that isolation when my daughter Rachel was born. All of a sudden, my contact with the outside world was cut off. I no longer saw clients. My work connections were gone. My family of origin were in Arkansas and I was in Connecticut. This was before the internet, and there was no word of support groups of any kind for new moms. If I'd had a support group, I would have had these benefits. I would have had a safe, non-judgmental place to speak your truth. I would have had the opportunity to learn firsthand from others. I'm not alone. Others also struggle. I would have had a place that provided hope and encouragement. And a place where there would be opportunities to speak and be heard and to listen. And finally, the opportunity to give as well as to receive support. That is also extremely healing. Now, maybe when Rachel was born, there were other kinds of groups, which I didn't know about. I did know about one kind of group, the childbirth group. And that era, everyone did a childbirth group, and mine was through my OB office. And, you know, so that was right before she was born. And there were probably breastfeeding education groups. I just was not aware of them. But there are other kinds of educational groups now that can be really helpful to moms. Comfort Measures group that help them with the discomfort of childbirth, and baby care groups, infant massage groups. There's even a group that's offered to help your dog adjust to the new baby. There's also another type of group that parents get involved with, are social groups. Jen ran before the pandemic, Mom's Morning Out. I think you mentioned earlier, Jen, that you're taking that kind of social group up again and calling it something else. I forget the name, but again, it's a place just for moms with babies to connect with other moms with babies. Those are social groups. And then we have support groups. We have the support groups like we're helping figure out today, like our Adjustment to Baby Challenges group, breastfeeding support groups, parenting after loss groups, and finally psychotherapy groups. Now, for those of us who are therapists, it can sometimes be hard to keep a support group and not kind of, I know I sometimes kind of edge into it being closer to a therapy group, but there are really important differences that we'll talk about briefly now. One of the big differences is that a facilitator of a therapy group is always a licensed mental health professional, whereas awesomely, we can have facilitators who are peer support people. And, you know, at PSI Connecticut, we're constantly trying to get, you know, moms to step up like Amanda did to be a support group facilitator once they've healed. Members support each other and give feedback, and the facilitator is just to guide the process. Whereas with a therapy group, it's more focused on group dynamics and the therapeutic process for each woman. With support groups, if the group rules allow, you could have support group people. I say support group people, I mean support persons such as a partner or a mother-in-law or a mother. But in a therapy group, because of confidentiality, we don't have support people within the group unless it's designed for families. And then of course that's different. For therapy groups, it's reimbursable with insurance, and support groups are typically free or donation. So it's not reimbursable for health insurance plans. And a really important difference is that a support group often has an open structure, which means that you know, members come and go, and they might come for 2 weeks, they might miss a week, they might come in for another week. You know, it's very open. Whereas a therapy group is more of a commitment, and it's often runs for a certain number of weeks. And is closed. Now that has advantages in that it increases group cohesiveness because you don't have to keep getting to know you such as you would in an open structure. However, we have found over time that the open structure generally works for this population better because it gives more flexibility. Our next two slides are outlining the research. that indicates that both peer-led support groups in general and specific therapy groups for perinatal women are effective. And we need more research that specifically looks at peer-led support groups. And there's a great big federal initiative. So I am pretty confident that we will be getting that research going in the next few years, because there's a lot of attention being paid to maternal mental health. So as you can see in these two slides, I'm not going to go into details, that group therapy for postpartum women and a psychoeducational group was effective. Also in 2007, the Direct Center for Medicare and Medicaid Services Director said, peer support works. And meta-analysis has indicated the same thing. So bottom line, groups work. So the next piece, I just lost my Zoom.
Where were you, Sharon?
Here I come. Who
Okay.
can come to this group? Are you still here?
We are all still here.
Are
Yeah,
you
we can hear you.
hearing and
Perfect.
seeing me?
Yep.
Yep.
Okay. Well, I'm just gonna keep going because I can't see you, but that's all right. As long as you can see me, that's fine. So we talked about the effectiveness, and then when you're starting a group, there's a lot of decisions to make. And the first one is who can come to this group. The focus today is going to be on pregnant women and moms with babies, including adoptive mothers. But, there are lots of other groups that need support and often can receive support. And I believe PSI is offering some of these support groups now, and nationally there are plenty of others that are being offered for fathers and partners, family members, pregnancy after loss, infertility. So, hopefully eventually that we will have whatever you're struggling with after a baby or a loss of a baby, you will have the ability to access that support. But today, for our purposes of our workshop today, we're focusing on pregnant women and moms with babies, including adopted mother. So one of the first things that you will need to decide is, are we going to have pregnant and postpartum women together? We decided that we would, and because of the benefits. And the benefits are that when you have them together, you have the postpartum women who have already been through the pregnancy, and they can provide that support for the pregnant women. And for the pregnant women, they're seeing babies, and that can give hope. New moms can see their progress from pregnancy while giving support to the pregnant moms. There are a couple of challenges that sometimes happen if there's only one pregnant woman in the group. That can sometimes be uncomfortable, and there's less cohesiveness, and there's a slight possibility of increased anticipatory anxiety, but that really is often outweighed by the benefits that we have for sharing the space. Another question that we have are, do babies or older kids attend, including our own? Almost every perinatal group that I know of does include the babies. And one of our mottos is, everything baby is good. You can change the baby, feed the baby, do whatever you need to do with the baby. It gets a little more challenging when the babies are toddling and moving around and getting into things, because, you know, let's face it, it's harder to focus on the group if you're distracted by that toddler. And the other concern that we have is that, you know, kids pick up on the emotional distress that the members might be experiencing. And, you know, every mom is aware of that. So that might inhibit the members from expressing all feelings. So obviously, ideally, in an ideal world, that we would have childcare for those older kids. Unfortunately, we don't live in an ideal world. And, you know, whether you're online or in person, if mom needs to be in the group and they have an older toddler, you know, we can, you know, often the moms can give the toddler something to distract them for a little while, for maybe 2 minutes. You know, we don't turn anyone away. So getting started. When we started the support group committee in 2013, there was only one support group for perinatal moms in Connecticut. Our goal, as Jen indicated before, was to create groups that were all over the state, where moms wouldn't have to drive beyond a half an hour, with a variety of days and times, so that whenever she could and she needed it, it would be available. We started our group, the ABC group, in 2014, and started training support group facilitators in 2017. And as more and more of these groups developed, we get closer and closer to our goal, but we still didn't reach it because actually Connecticut's pretty big. I always thought of it as a small group, but when you get to traveling these rural roads, it does take a while to get from one place to the next. And then, you know, 2020 happened and the pandemic changed. A silver lining of these challenging times is we had to pivot and continue to provide support and gain more skills and make groups more accessible. Now we have at least 15 groups on a variety of days and times, mostly online, so moms can attend when it fits their schedule rather than depending upon the location. Today, I'm going to be talking about in-person, and Sarah is going to go in more depth about these online groups and, you know, and what you need to decide as you start these groups. So one of the first decisions that you're going to be dealing with is, do I try to do this alone, or do I have a co-facilitator? And there's lots of benefits for having a co-facilitator. It divides the work. You have both someone else, one or more person. The ABC group, I think, has 5 or 6 facilitators now, which divides the groups up nicely to fit our own ability to give. But when we were in person, we frequently would have 2 sets of eyes for those times when we're watching what's going on and how can we help. And it also helped with just the practical things like setting up the room, handing out the paperwork, collecting the paperwork, cleaning up the room. Sometimes baby moms want a hand with the baby, and if you have a co-facilitator, that person can take the baby and give mom a break. In the rare occasion that you have a crisis, a co-facilitator can give individual attention. And, let's not underestimate the value of a co-facilitator in providing support for each other, just as we're giving it to others. We have to fill our pitcher. And on more than one occasion, I have debriefed with my co-facilitator after the group, or when we moved to online and we were only doing one facilitator to the group, I remember calling Martha and saying, "Oh, how did you deal with this situation?" And it was just so valuable to have her ear and to be able to talk to her about it. So if you're thinking about doing a group, we do have existing groups that need co-facilitators, and that might be a really good way for you to dip your toe in without, jumping in the deep end. And you could certainly reach out to Sarah at the PSI CT groups and let her know, and she can help connect you to a group that could benefit from having a co-facilitator. So decisions. The next decision that you have to kind of deal with is what kind of location are we going to have? And we will get back to physical space. It won't always be just online. As Marie said, I think before some of you got here, she's been very successful in running a Niantic group outside, and it's been pretty awesome. It's one of the few physical groups that are still occurring, I think. But eventually this pandemic will pass and we can go back to meeting in person, which has a whole other benefit. Where do you get that space? Libraries sometimes have rooms that they will lend to free groups in their communities. Community centers and family resource centers also have availability. Houses of worship. I ran a meetup in our synagogue for many years, and offices. When we started what we then called the Blue Mamas group, we started in the waiting room of a doctor's office downstairs from my office building, and we would start before the office opened. When the building opened a community room, we were able to fortunately move up, because then we could have a noontime opening. Stores will often provide available space, yoga studios, dance studios, and finally online is the new great and accessible way for people to connect. And in speaking of accessibility, when you're dealing with a physical environment, it's important to kind of look at, okay, is it stroller accessible? Most of your moms are going to be bringing their babies with their strollers. So is there an elevator or ramp? Is it well lit? Is it safe? Is there available parking? If it's an online group, is there privacy, free, accessible? I kind of alluded to scheduling. Things to consider about scheduling is that, first of all, there's no time that's ideal. I mentioned that we tried to start the Blue Mamas group early in the morning, and that was really hard for moms to get out. Frequently, they're up a lot at night and they're tired, and mornings is not a great time. Mid-morning, noon, afternoon times, they all work better. Our thought when we started the group was, well, when women's graduate to going back to work, then maybe that early time will work. That was not the case, because they're busy taking care of the kids and getting to work in the early morning. Evenings or weekends generally work better for working moms, except the witching hour, which is between 5 and 7. That generally is not successful time to schedule your time for a group. And we've talked a bit about this already in terms of the frequency. It really depends on what you can refer back to in Martha's exercise. What are your resources? weekly is ideal because it's predictable. Moms don't have to think about, is it the second Thursday or the third, or which day is it on the calendar? It's just like every week it meets. And that helps with people showing up and also creating cohesiveness. When moms are in the thick of it and they need the support and they want to come more frequently at that point. How long do you make it? Generally 60 to 90 minutes is a good amount of time. Moms are often late in coming and they're late in leaving. So as you're planning your group, trying to get there 15 minutes before, and you can pretty much count on staying for 15 minutes after, as people are leaving and you're wrapping up. I have found with the online groups, not necessary to come 15 minutes early or after, because you end the meeting when you leave. So certainly 5 or 10 minutes early is plenty of time. So the next thing you have to think about is, what are your group rules? It's a good idea to have a form that talks about all of that. And in that form, the participants can take it home, or you can email it in today's online groups. It's good to have some kind of mission. Our ABC mission is basically the purpose of our group. And the purpose of our group is to create a non-judgmental environment where women can share thoughts and feelings, talk about challenges, receive support, and obtain information about perinatal disorders. Our mission is to empower women and provide hope during the recovery period. So that's it in a nutshell. You also want to put on that participant form the group rules, which includes, what is said in the group stays in the group, confidentiality, and any exceptions, which is basically if you're there's a threat of harm to yourself or others, we're going to do what we can to protect you. A lot of people put on that participant guideline group a list of phone numbers and websites, which could be resources for the mom. And finally, there's a disclaimer. This is not therapy. This is support. We can refer if you need therapy. It's also a good idea if you're a mandated reporter. Not everyone is going to be, but therapists are in the state of Connecticut, is to think about how you want to communicate that to your group. And it's a good idea to put it on the form. So then if you forget to talk about it during a group, or it's not a comfortable thing, you have it at least on the form. And that comes to our second form, which is our registration form. So this is the form that has just about everything that I said, plus a little bit more information that the participants sign. And it stays with the facilitator. The additional information that's on that is their contact information, their name, their phone numbers, their address, and their email address these days. We also ask on our form for the names of their OB, midwife, their therapist, PCP, and psychiatrist. Again, we have that disclaimer. This is not therapy. We can refer. And the statement that if we feel you're unsafe, we're going to contact your emergency contact and or your therapist. So postpartum.net also has sample forms. I know Sarah sent you samples of the forms that we've used here in Connecticut. So that's all available that you can review later on. So you've got your plan in terms of who's going to co-facilitate it with you, where it's going to be, what the time frame it is, what are the rules, how do you get members. And there are lots of different ways that you can publicize the fact that you have a group starting that is going to be helpful. If your group is free or only accepting donations, you can both post it with PSI and PSI Connecticut. We will publicize it on our websites. So that's, and our members get our newsletters. And also I think we have a larger news list, email list for people who throughout the state who can get our newsletters that can also publicize your new group.
Thank you for mentioning that, Sharon. I didn't get a chance to emphasize this. If you go to psictchapter.com, I'll put this in the chat. Right there, it says join our mailing list. So that's what Sharon's referring to. We have probably our communications go out to over 1,000 people. So please, please join our mailing list. Thank you.
So yeah, I mean, that as a way to kind of just spread the word. You can call 211. I believe they will, then include your information in their information when people just call 211. And how do I get support? They can get it. You can send press releases to local newspapers. We've made flyers before and put them up in libraries and other places. Social media is the way that many moms get information. And on social media, there's often community groups, like West Hartford has a community group. There's Moms and More groups. And so all those places are places that you can let them know we've got this group for perinatal challenges. You can also go to hospitals and birth providers, pediatricians, other wellness providers, and let them know what's going on, that you're starting this group. We already talked about a mailing. The final thing I want to talk about in terms of members is that you can, it's a good idea to start an email listserv for your group, to send reminders of your group. And that has been extremely helpful, both with reminding moms who are sleep deprived the group is happening, but also to keep moms involved. We've had moms who came to our earlier groups have another baby and then come back because they were still on the listserv. They still got the reminders. They knew what was going on. So that's been an awesome benefit of our listserv. It's important to blind copy. I forgot to do that early on when we did this, but Annie caught it right away to blind copy your group members so that it's confidential and people aren't sharing, we aren't sharing their email with people that they didn't agree to share it with. So that's the nuts and bolts of getting started with the group. If you have questions, you could put it in the chat, and when we go to the Q&A, we'll address those questions. And I guess the last thing I want to say is, today on the 20th anniversary of 9/11, as Sarah said early on, it just makes so much sense that we're talking about how do we help each other? How do we provide support? That was the moment, the period of time when I felt our country was so cohesive and people were giving, and the outpouring of love and support for all the suffering was there. And how awesome it is that each of you are thinking about helping moms get support during this fragile, fragile time. So thanks so much for being here today. Now I'll turn it over to Sarah.
Hi guys. So we're actually running a little ahead in our presentation. So I was just wondering, that was a lot to take on. If anyone had any questions, maybe we can kind of take some questions now, since, oh, Jen, I don't know. There we are. But yeah, if anybody had a question on anything that we've talked about so far that you would like to ask, and maybe we could take just a few minutes to answer some questions. And if you don't have questions, that's actually a good thing. Does that mean that we're doing a really good job? Awesome. Okay, so I'm going to go back to sharing, and we'll just do, let's see here. All right. Okay, so here we are. We are at PSI CT, and this is our online support groups. I don't know why I'm not showing. Am I showing up on your screens, you guys? Yes, I am. Okay. So this is just a graphic I wanted to put up. These are screenshots of when you go to the Connecticut, the PSI CT chapter website. This is just for you guys to get an idea of how many support groups we really have. We have a lot of them. This isn't even all of them. And if you start to look at this graphic, it will show you, it will say Fairfield County and it says virtual group. Litchfield County, that's a virtual group. Spilled Milk, Circle of Mamas. So what really happened during this pandemic is, that infamous March 12th, 13th date when kind of everything was shutting down. I emailed the support groups in Connecticut and kind of said, where would you stand going forward? And within a week, almost every one of these groups were able to transition to some sort of an online platform, which is amazing and a testament to the work that we do here, that we all value that why, and that we knew that even though we would be home, these mamas needed help. So real quick, that's just to show you, and that's also to show you kind of how your support group would show up on our websites. It would go under which county you serve, and it would just kind of list the information, when you meet, who to contact. So it's another great resource. All right. So where am I here? Oh, there we are. I'm like wondering what this screen is. Duh. Okay. So after break, we're actually going to, this is completely separate, but I wanted to put it here as a reminder to ask all of you. After break, we're going to do a practice support group. So we actually need some of you to offer and volunteer to participate. So if you would like to play a role in our mock support group, this could be the facilitator. You could be assigned the role of a mom of 3 who is pregnant with baby number 4. There's several different roles that we would need people to play. So if you would like to participate, which I hope many of you would like to do because it's a really fun, neat part of this training, please send me a direct chat with just your name saying that you'd like to be interested, or just I'm interested. And during the break, I'm going to assign those roles to you, and then everyone else won't know what your role is, which will make the practice of the support group really, really neat. And I promise it's fun. So I hope you guys sign up. Let me know. Just send me a direct chat, and that will be great. All right, moving on. Online support groups. So I did kind of cover the fact that the pandemic led to the shift of doing things in person to doing them online. But it's also a really good option if you're having trouble finding a meeting location, or if your group is covering multiple towns. I live over on the eastern side of the state. There's not a lot of resources. So my support group tends to cover 5 or 6 different towns. When we met in person, I'd probably only have 2 or 3 people that came every meeting. Now with my online, I have anywhere between 7 to 9. So the online option works really, really well to cover that larger geographical area, especially in more rural areas like where I live. And again, I touched on the fact that our online support groups have just grown exponentially. Most of those groups making that transition the first week of the pandemic. And then that little picture there is my little nugget, my Cody, who is now 13. So don't blink, but he's my way, because when I had him, I didn't have a support group. I was very deep in postpartum depression. And I needed a lot of support. So it drives me to help all the other mamas that need it. And that's a huge why for me. This is just to kind of show you guys that PSI on the national level has very specialized groups that are free, and they meet virtually as well. I'm not going to go through all of them, but it's
Sarah.
Yeah, it's a great, great. It's
Yes,
a great.
thank you.
You're welcome, Jen. I know this was like a huge thing. It's just to show you that if you have a mom who's attending your group, or even a friend or anybody that you know that has a very specific need, there's a really good chance that PSI on the national network has a group for it. And you can just look at some of these. A mom going through fertility challenges, military moms, that's huge. A lot of times military moms, they form their little tribe and then they end up moving. So then they feel very alone and isolated. So having this national network, this online network to connect is great. They offer a dad support group, pretty awesome. I know that, it's not something that you think of, but dads get postpartum too. So it's great to have a resource to kind of point them in that direction. There's a group for queer and trans parents, a lot of different ones. So just keep that in mind. When I send follow-up materials after this training, I'm going to include all of these links in the email, so you'll have them, and you also have them in this presentation itself. But it's just a really great resource to have in your back pocket. Is there anything you want to add, Jen? I know this is important to you. Yeah, okay.
Yes, I do. Thank you, Sarah, because we're extremely proud of our parent organization for developing, I believe now there are over 30. These are all free online support groups. Many are specialized groups. And I understand from talking with PSI recently that for the most part, so there's a cap of how many people can get into the online group. If you were today to look at a group for next week, you'll get into that group. But if the group is tomorrow, you may be put on a wait list. But if you log in at the time, and it will give you this instruction, log in, you're on the wait list, and the support group leader will bring people in, because by and large, people will schedule and say, I'm going to go to the group next week, but then something comes up and they don't attend. So there's often spaces through the wait list. So I think that's important when you're sharing information about the PSI national groups, to not be, thwarted if you don't get in right away. Yeah, I'm really proud of us in Connecticut for the growth, and also at the national level.
Yeah.
Thanks.
No, thank you. This is just a quick screenshot of the calendar that we have here in Connecticut that shows all of our support groups and kind of when they meet. And again, I know that as PSI members, we talk about this a lot in our meetings, how proud we are of this. The fact that we have a group almost every single day that a mom could attend if they needed some sort of support. And most of these are meeting online right now. Parents are able to get the links to these. You can also see that they're all different times of day, which again, when Sharon spoke of the difficulty of kind of picking and nailing down a time, this actually can appeal to moms in all different areas. If 1 p.m. really works the best, then they have an option for that. So when and if you decide to create your support group, you would let me know. I would be more than happy to help you get materials ready and everything. But then the other big piece of this is that you go on this calendar, and moms would be able to see when your group is, and just really just how neat it is that we have so many support groups here in Connecticut. All right, so here we go. Let's get to the nitty gritty of online support groups. The benefits, we kind of touched on a lot of this, that it's accessible and convenient. Parents without a car or transportation, that's not a barrier if they don't live on a bus line. That's a huge thing in my town. So we have a bus line, but it goes down our one main road. So when we were meeting in person, I was very limited as to where I could choose. I was lucky enough to find a location on that bus line, but online really takes that barrier down. I know I spoke before about geographical location, rural and remote areas. People there can tune in, they can get online and join your group. It's also convenient for moms who can attend from home or maybe during a break at work. They don't have to necessarily get in their car, add travel time. It's just very convenient. You tune in, you tune out, you go back to work. It's great. Online support groups, many of the meeting platforms are free. So Zoom, Google Hangout, GoToMeeting. Another quick thing I want to mention is that we have Zoom accounts here through PSI CT. If you're really struggling to create a Zoom account, or if you wanted to make sure you could go the full hour, reach out to me and we might be able to let you use our Zoom to host those meetings, depending on when and if we have time. If we don't have another group scheduled, we can try to work with you and figure that out. And it's also really appealing online groups to moms who may not seek face-to-face support. So if we have a new mom who is very anxious and they don't want to leave their house, they feel much safer there, and they can be with their babies, they can tune in online. And it also allows for this level of anonymity where they don't have to say, hi, I'm Sarah, I'm from, Mansfield, Connecticut. They could say, I'm Susan. It lets them kind of protect their identity, alleviate some of that anxiousness of attending a group. So that's definitely a benefit. Some of the barriers, access to technology. Not everybody has the best internet connection, especially those people living in rural areas. One of the things that, I know I struggled with when the pandemic started was my internet connection. It just was not reliable enough to run these meetings. It's gotten better. I've had to do a lot of troubleshooting, but that's a barrier in itself. Access to a tablet or a laptop. You can tune into a lot of these meetings using your cell phone, but again, you need that bandwidth to allow you to participate. When you're in an online support group, it's really difficult to read body language and understand social cues. So a lot of those group dynamics when you're in person and you really can read and see that someone's really upset or uncomfortable with a certain topic, you don't necessarily get that in an online group setting. It's less personal in the sense that it's more difficult to include everyone. If someone's kind of talking or asked a question, you can't all answer at once. You can't all, add your opinion when someone's talking, because you kind of have to wait your turn. And it also, due to it being much less personal online, some group members may feel more comfortable being harsh and sharing comments that might not be as pleasant because they're behind a screen. They kind of, I forget what that's called, like the keyboard ninja. You feel a lot more comfortable behind your screen to be more confrontational. I personally have not had that happen, but I know that it happens in a lot of online forums. So there's, a chance that that could happen. In attendance online, again, it's a much more fluid. It's not this thing that your presence is expected, your physical presence. You're not meeting every week at a location. So sometimes they'll be like, well, it's just a meeting, I'm going to do this instead. So it's a lot more, I would say I don't have a lot of moms that come as regularly online, but they'll always check in every few weeks. Like they'll kind of come back and be like, oh, hi, I was here tonight. So that is a barrier. Let's see here. Other things to consider. So it's difficult to know when to speak up. especially if you're facilitating an online group, there's great conversation, but you might have a monopolizer, which is something that we're going to talk about a little later, who's kind of stealing and taking over the show. In some ways, that's good because they might be bringing up some really important things and generating good discussion. So it's difficult behind a screen to know when to stop that. Only one person can really talk at a time when you're in an online group. So it's difficult to read that room and know where your part in that is. Another thing, and you guys can literally look to me for this as an example, know how to use your platform. I did run through a gazillion times on Zoom, to figure out how I would run this training. But I missed a few things, and thankfully we had enough people here that knew how to correct those. But it's really important to familiar yourself with the platform that you're using. If you're using Zoom, create a meeting just by yourself, practice the hand raise feature, the chat, muting other participants, explore all the optional functions just so that you know what they are. And then when you create the meeting link and signing in, practice doing that. Make sure that it's easy for other participants to do. A lot of these online platforms give you the option to change the password so that it's not a string of numbers, but maybe a word, which is much easier for people signing in. And then another thing to consider, and this kind of can go under the barriers, is that you want to assure that group members are in a private setting to maintain the confidentiality of everybody else. So, online, it's difficult to know. You might be having a mom face-to-face on camera, but their husband could be sitting right there on a chair to their side. So, in the group rules on the registration form, and it is recommended to go over those rules quickly at the beginning of every meeting, just kind of mention, hey, make sure you're in a private setting. We want to maintain everybody's confidentiality because that is important. It's a huge part of this group, any support group. So we are here. We are at break. We've done it. So we are ahead of time. Anybody, like I said, that wants to participate in the mock support group, please send me a direct message. During break, I'm going to hand out those roles. We're going to take about a 10-minute break, and then we're going to come back in the fabulous Miss Annie is going to take over. So thank you for being with us so far. I'm going to stop sharing. I'm going to stop recording, and we will see you in about 10 minutes. Thanks, everyone. There we go.
Robot.
All right.
So if you are not a perinatal mental health provider, if you are if you're a doula, if you're a mom who has lived experience, if you are a mom who does not have lived experience, but you are you're running groups because this is just a passion of yours, you do not have to be a therapist to do an awesome job running groups. In fact, sometimes women who are not therapists are a little easier in connecting with these moms. You do not have to be a therapist. I think Sharon spoke earlier to, it can be hard as a therapist to navigate the difference between a support group and a therapy group. We want to get in there, right? And so oftentimes peer-to-peer support is amazing. We very much love when women want to run groups who are not therapists. So please don't feel like you need to be a therapist to run an awesome support group. But if you're not one, you want to know the therapists in your area. And we at PSI can give you all of that information. It's really easy to find. It's very much accessible on our website. You want to know a therapist. You want to have maybe one of your co-facilitators a therapist, or if not, that's totally cool too. You can always reach out to any of us who are doing this training. I know all of our information is at the beginning of the presentation. Our email addresses and I believe our phone numbers are there. You can reach out to any of us. If you're worried about someone and she doesn't have a therapist, give us a call and we can help talk it through. We can also assess this mama for you if you need her to connect to a therapist. Whether or not we can take her on as a client is another story, but we can help find her resources. Or obviously, the resource coordinators in Connecticut are 100% available to help with that. But you really do, when you're setting up your group, you really do want to have a support system. You want to know a couple people in your area who do this kind of work. And even if you are a therapist, I mean, there are many times after group where maybe I felt a little uneasy about a mom in the group and she's not my individual client. And I might know that Sharon is her therapist, right? And I might contact Sharon and say, hey, how's she doing? Right? I just want to make sure, you know, we feel like she's doing okay, right? But you do not want to feel alone in running a support group. You might be the only facilitator. We obviously very much recommend you have a partner in this. But you do not in your community want to feel alone. And I guess what I will venture to say is you're not alone. You have all of us. So nobody's alone. And we'll talk about this a little bit later too, but this is hard work. You know, this is tough work. So you're gonna want to have your process of debriefing after a difficult group. You're gonna want to have your people, your tribe, as Sarah put it, right, to talk to about what this is about. And ideally, again, that's going to be one of your co-facilitators. So it's on the paperwork, right, that these are the co-facilitators. And so the mamas in the group know that we touch base, right? The mamas in our group know that we have a ton of facilitators that alternate in the groups. I think there are 5 or 6 of us, and we talk after every group we connect. These are the moms who were there, right? We might share a little bit about what the content was of the group. We might share if we're concerned about somebody, but we do not at all feel alone in this. And again, back to how you're preparing for the potential for risk, you do want to know any emergency response systems that are available for you. We have wonderful mobile crisis units in Connecticut. Not every state has access to these. So if you call 211, if you need somebody to be assessed by a mental health provider, they will come to your location. Or if you're doing a virtual group, they will come to the home of the group member and assess whether this person needs to go to the hospital or not. So again, you want to know how to do that. And this is what you would do in an absolute emergency. You've determined that this mama is suicidal or homicidal or in danger of really hurting herself. Or maybe you're like, I don't know, I'm so stressed. I don't know, I just feel really uneasy, right? This is what you're gonna do. You're gonna call her emergency contact. If you're online, you're gonna keep the mama in the call if you can, okay? If for some reason she drops off, that's pretty scary. It could be, right? Because you don't know where she went, but you have her phone number, you have her address, you have her emergency contact, you possibly have her doctor, her medication provider, her therapist. You're going to call those people. Again, if she's dropped off and you need to get the police to her house, you're going to call and you're going to say, this is her address, right? Or if she's not at her house, you're going to do your best to get this person the support that she needs. If she's hanging with you, again, you really want her to hang with you, right? The idea is to try to get her to voluntarily go to the hospital. Obviously, if somebody can drive her, that's awesome. If no one's available, you're going to call 911 and you're going to get an ambulance to take her to the hospital. And again, number 4, you're going to try to remain with her until somebody else is there. Never happened in my group. I don't think it's ever happened in Sarah's group or Marie's group. The one time I guess it was like 5 years ago, the woman had a suicide attempt the day before and came to group a little early to share it with me. And she was no longer in active immediate danger, but I did call her husband. I spoke to him for quite a while. I spoke to her therapist live. I made sure that she had an appointment. I think it was the next day or the day after, right? We made sure that the baby was with her mother. We made sure that everyone was taken care of and that she had a plan for the rest of the day to stay safe. So that was the only time this has ever happened in our group. So again, we can get really freaked out about this, but it is extremely rare that we're actually going to deal with somebody who's verbalizing risk to self or others. So, and even, back to Honickman, back to what Jen was saying, back to, what we've been saying this entire time. Oh my gosh, it's amazing when these women come to group, right? It's amazing that they're seeking out this support. They're so extraordinarily brave for coming to us. That's time I run a group is just the extraordinary bravery of these women showing up to talk about how they're feeling. Okay, so some of them are not going to have therapists. Quite a few of them don't. Quite a few of them, you know, don't have really anybody else, maybe their partner, maybe a mother who knows what's going on with them. And so we definitely want to be talking about options for support. And on our paperwork that we hand to them or we email to them, we're going to have some of these resources, right? So hopefully, like, they can look at it right there. But we do want to say, often in group, if we notice somebody is struggling, right? And again, this is not immediate risk, but if we notice somebody is struggling, we want to remind them, I can help you find a therapist. Okay. You know, oftentimes in our groups, the clients, sorry, not the clients, listen to the therapist, right? The members of the group will talk about their therapists. Like, how often do they say, right, well, Dr. Thomason told me that this is a season of my life that's really difficult, right? And then you see the other members nodding and you can sort of see that bubble coming off. I want a Dr. Thomason, right? I want a Martha Adams, right? I want one of these people. And so they will email. I mean, I think I got a couple this week from people that have been in group. Hey, are you accepting new clients? Do you know anybody who is, right? But we want to put out there, we can refer you, we can refer you. And if we don't know anybody with openings, go on the PSI website, contact Sarah, contact me, contact any of us. Will help you find somebody for these mamas. But again, if possible, you want to have a list of referrals. So you can just shoot that right off to the mama and say, hey, you know, this person takes Husky and is available and accepting new clients. And again, these mamas are super overwhelmed, right? Like, whether we are struggling with an active PMAD or we are struggling with the stressors of new motherhood and everything else that's going on in our lives and sleep deprivation, right? The idea of having to go out of our way to try to find a therapist, to go out of our way to try to find more support, it is a miracle that we've arrived in the group to begin with when we're in that space, right? So if you're like, hey, why don't you just get a therapist? But we don't offer them any connection. We don't offer them any specific ideas of how to do that, right? We're basically presenting them with something that's just going to further overwhelm them and they're probably not even going to do it. So, you know, we really do try as much as possible to have that list of providers in specific areas. And again, we can super help you guys with this. And maybe at the end, we can talk a little bit more, if we have time, Jen and Sarah, about how exactly to look for these resources. But, you know, we really do want to try to give a mama something that is tangible, that she's actually going to be able to follow through with, recognizing how overwhelmed she is. And before I get into, that's my baby Eliza. Hi, Eliza. Before a lot of our babies are peppered through this presentation, so it's just so cute. This baby is now 6. But I'm not sure we've really pointed this out, but I think it's important to keep saying this or to state it pretty emphatically that, you know, we're talking a lot in this training, very importantly, about mamas with PMADs, right? And how to understand perinatal mood and anxiety disorders and within the context of a support group. You're going to have a lot of moms who come that don't fit the criteria. And Martha spoke to this a little bit, but don't fit the criteria for PMADs. You have a lot of mamas who are looking for support and don't have it, and they belong in this group too. And very much, and probably the bulk of the mamas, maybe 50-50 of the group, don't necessarily meet that diagnostic criteria, but are looking for support. And I think we can also get in our heads a little bit when we're first starting out, how do I do a group with a mama who's struggling with significant PMAD and a mama who's struggling with breastfeeding issues, and maybe a little anxiety around it, but not really like full diagnosis, et cetera. How do I do that, right? It just works. It just works. I promise you it works. There's room for everybody in this group. Okay. So what happens in the actual group? How do we actually do this? Like, we've talked a lot about preparing. We've talked a lot about paperwork. We've talked a lot about who might be coming, but what actually happens in this group? Okay, so let's start from the very, very beginning, right? So at the even before the women come, if we're doing an online group, they've probably emailed and said, I'd like to join your online group. And they have the paperwork, right? We email it right to them. And they've already filled it out. So we already have all their information. They've already read a little bit about the group. We already have their emergency resource. That's all done ahead of time. If we're in person, mamas are going to come in without having done that. So we are going to be handing them paperwork and doing it right there and talking to them about it as they walk in. And we'll get to that in the next slide. But we want to create the most comfortable, loving, open-hearted, peaceful environment we possibly can, non-judgmental environment we possibly can. Comfort, ease, we want to be empathetic, warm, don't not be yourself, right? We don't have to play act the way you're not going to be play acting as we're getting into this mock group, right? Just be yourself, right? Women are so nervous. Most of them have never been to a support group before, right? Or maybe they have been, maybe, I think Sharon said this, but oh my gosh, we have women in the ABC group who are there for their third baby. And they're nervous too. They're showing up again. Who's gonna be here, right? Who's gonna show up today, right? These are open groups, meaning new women are dropping in all the time, right? Who's gonna be here? Will I be judged? Is it okay for me to talk? I don't really wanna talk. I just wanna sit. Is that okay? Women have no idea what to expect. Remember that it's really hard to get to group. If it's in person, I mean, we all remember those, maybe some of you have babies right now, like schlepping kids out of the house, in the car, or maybe we did leave the baby at home, but we're incredibly anxious about doing so. But online, it's even hard to get there, right? I think, you know, one of the things that we say all the time in our group is there's no such thing as late, ever. I don't care. We don't care if you come, Sarah spoke to this, 5 minutes before group is over. There is no such thing as late. There is no such thing as not wearing the right clothes. Please come in your pajamas or come dressed up if that's part of your process of self-care, right? Please come with your baby screaming the whole time. We don't want you to leave unless you want to. That's fine. You can walk out of the room if you want to, but we also welcome your baby screaming the entire time. We welcome you breastfeeding. We welcome you bottle feeding. And we'll talk about that in a little bit too. We welcome poopy diapers. We welcome pee-pee diapers. We welcome your own tears. We welcome your screaming and crying, right? We welcome it all. Everything goes in this group. Everything goes in this group. So we want to, as soon as women walk in, and ideally even before, just in the tone of our emails and the tone of our phone messages, we want to just create the most warming, welcoming environment that we possibly can. Again, just some more strategies, right? Just welcome her. We're so glad you're here. I really like the idea of mothering the mother, right? Make her feel wanted and special. After babies are born, so often we go from this pregnancy period, right, where we're all about how you doing, how you feeling, to the baby's born and it's all about the baby. Let this be an opportunity, whether it's an hour or an hour and a half, or if she's there for 20 minutes of her feeling cared for. And does it, again, this idea that people are going to be trickling in. Every single woman who comes into your online Zoom group, every woman that comes into your group in person, we're so happy you're here, right? We might, you know, you'll find your dance, your way of gently, oh my gosh, thank you for sharing, when somebody is sharing, to sort of gently interrupt to welcome the new mama, or hey, come on in, even if you're not interrupting. We just want everybody to feel like they are welcome, no matter when they show up. So we're talking about the space that we're creating, right? Again, we continue to talk about making things simple, making things calm, making it loving, right? You know, we want the paperwork, and again, you are going to have those samples provided to you and what Sarah is going to email you. We want it to be simple, easy if we're in person, right? We want things accessible, right? We don't want a mama to be like, I don't have a pen, and for us to not have a pen, right? We want things to be ready for her. Nothing else feels simple in her life. Like, we want this to be as simple as possible. If you are in person, and I guess this would probably be a post-pandemic thing, right? Offering to hold a baby is maybe not something we would do right now. Although if a mama asks, right, please hold my baby, like, you know, you do what feels comfortable for you. But in a normal time, non-pandemic time, right, we might offer, of course, we all know this, I don't even need to say this, we're never gonna take a baby without permission. We're never gonna touch a baby without permission, ever, 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 ever. A lot of these mamas have a ton of anxiety. But we're gonna try to make this as easy for her as possible. And we're going to start a little bit late. I always start a little bit late. I think we all do, right? We started a little bit late today. And again, this parallel process, I loved how we started a little bit late, but we were kind of all chit-chatting a little bit and welcome each other and waving to each other for those of us who were here right then. You know, I think that's kind of what we want to look at when we're doing these groups is, you know, warmth, come on in, like starting a little late so nobody feels like they were supposed to be here exactly on time. And we're always going to start with group norms and group rules. And that's the next slide. Okay, so, you know, we have very few rules, but the ones that we do have are very important. And we'll probably say something like that at the start of group. I will say just about everything goes here. Just about everything goes, right? Very, very few rules, but the ones that we do have are just really important because they're here to keep us safe, to have everybody feeling safe. And the first one, of course, is confidentiality, that what happens in group stays in group, the identities, the names of our babies, the names of ourselves, the names of our spouses, you know, anything that's identifying information, where somebody works, all that, this stays here, right? We want this to be a space where moms can share anything. It stays right here. And we're going to do this every group, even if moms have mostly been there before and we don't really think we have anybody new, we're probably going to quickly talk about this every group, just super quick, right? Just as a gentle reminder that this is incredibly important. Sarah spoke to the difficulty with confidentiality in an online format because we don't really know who's in the room. We don't really know who's going to be walking by to grab his lunch, right? So we might talk about that, right? Let's all try as much as possible to be in a place where we're alone or maybe alone with our children. But we also know the limits of the online environment. We know the limits of the internet, right? We know that life happens and the most important thing is just that you're here. But just to make mamas aware that we can only go so far with what we can control in other people's homes. And number two, I think, is probably the most important rule that we have, that this is a judgment-free zone. Okay, judgment-free. This is a safe place to share everything that we're feeling and thinking, and to feel supported in all of it. Anything goes, okay? And I think, you know, we can sometimes feel this sort of collective shoulder drop, this collective sigh of relief when we tell mamas that they can share all of it, right? All the feelings, because they don't really have a space for this. Maybe if they're lucky, they have a therapist, maybe, but even then, like, sometimes it's hard. I mean, I feel this with my own therapist. Sometimes it's hard for me to be super real with that one person, right? But it's easier to share with peers. Sometimes it's easier to share with people that we know are probably going through it too. Okay, so this is the only place a lot of these mamas have to talk about what's really going on with them and share all their feelings. Number three, we like to talk about giving suggestions rather than advice. So a lot of times we're going to have heads nodding in group, right? A mama talking about her breastfeeding challenges, right? You might have a mama really in the throes of difficulty with nursing and trying to decide what to do next, right? Whether to keep at it, whether to, keep doing what her lactation consultant's telling her to do, whether to pump more, whether to do this, or like all the things, just that extraordinarily stressful time around having breastfeeding challenges. And we might have a lot of nods, right? A lot of nods in that group. And as a group member, it can be really tempting to say, you should call Susan Forrester because she's the best lactation, she's very good, but best lactation consultant in the world. You should call her. She worked for me, you should, right? That's a should. Martha spoke to shoulds, right? That's advice. We really want to suggest that people say something like, this is a suggestion. I had a really good experience with a lactation consultant. I'm really happy to give you her information, right? Or, not you should switch to formula because I did and it changed my life, right? Like, a mama saying, what, I went through what you went through. I found relief in switching to formula. It really changed the way that I was parenting, right? We want to give suggestions. We want to speak from our own experience rather than telling somebody what they should do. We mamas out in the world, we get enough, right? We get enough people telling us what we should do. We don't need it from group. This is a place to talk about our own experience, our own lived experience. Sometimes moms will ask for advice, right? And we might clarify with them, like, you looking for people to kind of share what worked for them? All right, cool. So, people can absolutely share. Moms are all often asking for advice. I mean, Marie, sleep, right? Marie's kind of the sleep guru, I feel like, in group, right? Marie, people are always going to Marie, sleep, sleep, sleep. So, they come to us too. They see us in an expert role. They're looking for help sometimes with really tangible things, and that's okay, right? But we want to give it in a way that's about our own experience, or what we've, if we're providers, what we've seen other people benefit from, and just keep reminding women that what works for one mama doesn't necessarily work for the next. And then the fourth, we've already talked about. Everything, we say everything baby is good here. I even expand that to everything's good here, right? Everything baby means breastfeeding, bottle feeding, pooping, all the things, right? Screaming, right? I think everything, mama screaming, going to the bathroom, getting up, getting food, right? Eating during group. I mean, I usually eat when I'm running group because it's my lunch break. All of that is totally acceptable. Going back to that judgment-free zone, we're humaning in this group. We're humaning. Okay, so what is the structure of a support group? So we talked about kind of thinking about how long you want your group to be. In our group, we do an hour. Some facilitators do an hour and a half. This is totally up to you. This is up to you in terms of how much time you have, literally, what you can take out of your day. You might find if your group is getting really big, then an hour doesn't really feel like enough time. But we have found that an hour, whether we have 2 moms or whether we have 11 moms, is a fine amount of time. But we want to think about kind of being mindful of that time frame, right? Knowing that women are going to trickle in, and knowing that we want to start wrapping it up right before that hour mark. There are some facilitators who are able and willing and interested in letting women stay in the group for longer than that hour. I can't do that. I'm usually rushing off to a client right away. So, and I also sort of feel that the timeline of the group usually is something that I want to stick to. I like the idea of a beginning and an end, or the beginning being a little more of a trickle and the end kind of being pretty specific so women know what to expect. But if you're somebody who wants to let women hang, then that's totally fine too. You can make that decision. But we do want to be mindful of the hour or the hour and a half that we have. So in the ABC group, we have a pretty loose structure, very, very loose. So loose, in fact, that sometimes we kind of don't even do it. But we do introductions every single group. And our introductions are super simple. We share our first names. And again, Sarah spoke to if they don't want to, they don't necessarily have to. I don't think that I have ever had a mom not share her first name. I think in creating a safe space for everybody, it is best if moms do share their names, and the first names and the ages of their children, if they're comfortable with that. I believe that it is best if moms, if we're doing online, do have their video on, because I do think that it can be a little intimidating for moms who are on video to see that there are other people in group, but not be able to see their eyes, not be able to connect to them. It can be a little anxiety provoking. I don't know how other facilitators do this, but I will ask a mama if she feels comfortable turning her video on. If she says no, I'll say that's no problem at all. Like, that's fine. We're just really glad you're here. If you do feel comfortable at some point, go for it. If not, you're welcome to keep your video off. But I will ask her if she will, because I do think that it helps create more of a sense of safety for the entire group when they can see everyone's eyes. Because again, it can feel a little awkward if there's somebody there, but we don't know who they are, really. Again, it sort of lends to fears around confidentiality, what's in the space, what are we not seeing? And again, this is to a certain extent, this is a personal decision as a facilitator, okay? And I'm sure some of the other ABC members do things differently. ABC facilitators do things differently. I will never force a mama to do it, but I will ask her to turn the video on if she's comfortable. Just remembering, again, going back to, it is so hard to get here. It is so brave to be here, that come as you are. Come as you are. And if for whatever reason today you just do not feel comfortable turning that on, we're chill. We'll hang with you. Okay. So we'll typically share first names and ages of kids. And then we have an opening as part of that, going around the circle. We have an opening kind of fun thing that we do. A meaningful way to begin and end this group. This is the way we bookend the beginning of the group. What we do at ABC, and feel free to use this or feel free to do something different, we say, give us your name, the first name and ages of your children, and tell us one thing that you did for yourself since we've seen you last, or one thing that you've done for yourself over the past week, right? And all sorts of things come up, right? Oh, I took a shower. I took a nap. I got a manicure. I went for a run. I went for my first walk at all outside. I took 6 deep breaths, right? Or, you know, oftentimes it's, good God, I can't think of anything, excuse me. And we might talk about self-care in that group, right? That might be a good option for us to talk about self-care in that group. But that's how we start the group. Name, your baby's name, ages, or if you're pregnant, if you want to tell us kind of where you are in your pregnancy. You know, sometimes people will share their rainbow babies. Sometimes people will share a little bit more, right? Oftentimes people will share a little bit more, and that's okay, right? And we can sort of let them share and then sort of guide to the next person. But names, babies, ages, and one thing you did for yourself, okay? And then at the end, as we're wrapping up, we say, we're going to go around the room. We're going to say one thing that we're going to do for ourselves before we see each other again. Okay, that's how we bookend our group. There are many other options. There's doing a quick little meditation. There's having an affirmation. There's all sorts of things that we can come up with. You don't necessarily even need to do anything like that. It just sort of has been our little signature moment at ABC. And I think it can also help with getting the flow going and can help us learn a little bit about each other in a safe, relatively comfortable way, right? And then what do we do after we share the thing that that we've done for ourselves? What happens next? Honestly, usually women just jump right in, all right? Especially if they've been to group before. They'll ask questions of each other. They'll start talking about what's going on with them. But that might not happen, and they might need a little gentle chatting, right? I'll usually start with, like, what's going on? What's in the room today? How are we doing today? Okay. What do we need to talk about today? Right. And oftentimes you'll see, especially now in the online format, a woman unmute herself and just start to talk. She'll start to talk about how she hasn't slept in a while and she's exhausted. She'll start to talk about her challenges in her relationship with her partner. She'll start to talk about how difficult breastfeeding has been. She'll start to talk about how stigmatized she feels because she is formula feeding and she doesn't have a safe place to talk about the stigma that she's experiencing, right? She'll start to talk about the yoga class she went to and how excited she was that she was able to get out of the house, right? They'll just start to talk, okay? And then it'll flow. Typically it'll flow. Women will and unmute themselves and say, I'm having trouble with sleeping too, right? And they will go with each other, right? We can chime in, we do, you know, we're members of this group too, to a certain extent. We'll get into that in a moment, right? We can chime in, the group will flow. If there's silence, and there might be silence, and silence is okay. Silence can feel a little scary as a facilitator, but it's not scary. Silence is okay, right? We can hold that silence. We might bring up one of these more universal topics, like how's everyone doing with sleep, right? How are we doing? Or if somebody was there last week or the last time we ran group, we might bring up something that we know that they're working on. Hey, Jane, did you go on that date with your partner? How was it, right? We might kind of bring up something that has happened in past groups or has been talked about, or a more universal subject. And we're going to get a handout emailed to you as part of the packet with ideas for universal subjects. So if you're feeling lost as a facilitator, you can look at some of these ideas. You know, sleep, relationship challenges, feeding challenges, older siblings. Like there are a lot of ideas. Identity, right? How's everyone doing with this idea of identity? Returning to work, right? Support system, COVID. I mean, I don't think that there's been a group in however many months that we haven't talked about how the pandemic has affected motherhood right now, okay? And groups don't have to focus on one topic or two topics the whole time. They're gonna flow, they're gonna dance. Remember, this is a support group. This is not a psychotherapy group. There's no theme for the group necessarily. Some of the groups will have themes, which is kind of fun. You might spend an entire group talking about sleep challenges. Okay? You might spend an entire group talking about anxiety. You might spend an entire group, which is so beautiful, right? If women are coming in and able to talk about how they're having anxiety and everybody's joining in and supporting her or talking about their own experience. I mean, what a miraculous, gorgeous group, okay? But you're just gonna let the group go where it needs to go today. There's no gold star, there's no good group and bad group, right? There's just this moment in time of women coming together to connect. And you're gonna have some groups, and we'll talk about this a little bit too. You might have one mom, you might have a conversation with one mom the whole time, which is fun. Could be fun, right? You might have 11. I think, you know, Sharon and I were sort of reflecting on our group over the past many years. And I think there have only been like, not even a handful, like 2 or 3 times that we've had nobody, which is unbelievable. We often do have one. I'd say like every 2 months or so, we might have one mom. Sometimes we have 2. Sometimes we have 2 very, very, very different people. And every single time we have this little cohort, it is a beautiful opportunity for something new to happen, right? I think I can get a little nervous when I know like, oh my gosh, this mama, like I've had these moms in group before. This mama is struggling with extraordinary postpartum depression. And this mama and really needs to talk about it. And this mama's brand new and kind of seems like she's, you know, she's nervous and she isn't quite ready to go deep, or maybe she's here for things that are very different from the other mom. I'll feel that trepidation around how do I connect us? Just let it be. All right. You'll pick up on sleep. You'll pick up on those universal topics. You'll pick up on something that connects. You'll let them figure it out. Okay. I think oftentimes, especially we therapists, can struggle with feeling like we have to facilitate the whole thing. We don't. Okay. We're going to let a lot of it just flow as it does. So, and again, just being mindful of time. If we're in person and you have to go, you matter. We're volunteering for the most part doing this, ladies, right? We matter. If we have to go, you know, we don't want to feel resentful at the end of group. So we want to make sure we start wrapping up wrapping up the conversation, giving notice. All right, mamas, we've got about 5 more minutes. So, let's just make sure we have enough time to say goodbye to each other. I'm looking at my clock. That's why I'm looking. I'm in my office.
I was just going to add, Annie, in being mindful of time, that we still have a lot of slides and we still have to get to like the group and stuff. So we're already at 45 minutes for you. So.
Woo. All right. A lot of information. All right.
It's a lot of stuff. I agree.
Well, we're almost done. So, I think we like to talk about this as being a dance. Okay. So our role is to be mindful about what's happening in the room and to meet various needs at various times and then step back at others. And again, we're going to be in the middle of the process when a new mom comes in, we greet her, we repeat the group norms and rules, and then we continue the process. If we're in person, right, we might physically actually be dancing. We got a lot of mamas dancing, even in these online groups, right? Maybe coming in and out if baby's sleeping. There's going to be some physical dance happening too, but this truly does feel like a dance. And I think that's a fun way to think about it. And again, we're being aware of all the needs. We're going to take stock of who's being quiet, who might need a little gentle prodding, a little gentle like, hey, how you doing today, right? Do you want to share? And she might say no, okay? But our eyes are going to be looking at these different moms and taking a look at what we might think they need, trusting our intuition to decide if we want to bring a mama in with some words or, allowing her to maybe continue to take that space. We're being aware of the content of group, right? We're aware that somebody brought up relationship challenges, 30 minutes ago, and we didn't get a chance to go with that, but we know that she needs to talk about that today. So even though we've spent a bulk of group talking about something different, we're going to go back and say like, hey, Joey, like, I guess could that be a girl's name? Sure. You mentioned that, like, I just want to make sure we have enough time for you. So we're going to make sure that we remember things that have come up that a mom might need to talk about, even if later on we've been talking about something else. But above all, we just want to be gentle with ourselves, right? We're not going to catch everything. Some groups are going to feel a little awkward. We just really want to be present for these moms, and creating this space is more than enough. This is important, right? We want to think about use of self. So by that means, what do we share? What do we share as the facilitators? In psychotherapy groups, this might be a little different. In the support group, we're more of a member. We more join the group rather than act as the expert in the group. Okay, and so this is going to be within your comfort zone and also within what you think is best for the group. Okay, so my use of self might just be me sharing my name and the names of my kids and their ages and what I did for myself. I will always do the thing that I'm asking the mamas to do, what I did for myself over the last week. Or I might go a little deeper, particularly if I sense that the group might need that from me, right? A little bit deeper. I might say exactly what it says here. I gotta remember getting no sleep, right? Or I might share a short little story. But I think what's most important is that the women know that we are well. Okay? They need to feel hope from us. They need to know that the dark days, these hard days are going to get better, right? We're not going to talk a ton about ourselves, but they really do need to see us as somebody who has gotten through the challenges of early motherhood. And this is a rule of thumb. I think I love this, right? If you want to share, you want to ask yourself, why are you sharing? Pause. Am I sharing because I'm feeling anxious, right? And like, I want to take up this silence right now because the silence is kind of awkward for me. So I'm going to share a story about something that happened to me, right? Or, so that would be for me, right? That would be for my anxiety. Or am I actually sharing for them? Am I sharing because this is actually going to help them? Okay, so if that's true, then go ahead and share. So we might have some challenges, right? We might have somebody who takes up a lot of space. My big thing with this is take off your own judgment, okay? Find your empathy for her. She needs to take up space today, okay? We will figure out as we become facilitators how we deal with somebody who truly is monopolizing too much time, right? We might say ahead of time, if we know we have somebody who might monopolize a lot of time in the group, we might say, ladies, I just want to make sure everybody has enough time today. So I'm gonna I might gently redirect. I might even like tell you, I'm going to mute you if you're not talking. And I'm going to say this to everybody, obviously not just to the one person, right? So we're going to find our way of dancing with this, right? We're going to find our way of making sure that she feels loved and cared for, right? Being aware of our own triggers. Maybe we're feeling kind of annoyed with her. That's normal. We're human. Okay. But we're going to try to find that empathy that she needs that and say, oh my gosh, thank you so much for sharing all about your sleep challenges. Like who else has these problems? So we can thank the mama and then gently move on to someone else. And this usually works very well. You can usually see her nodding and muting herself and saying, thank you. Right? The expert is another one we might find. Again, that's that person who's shooting on everybody, right? Saying that, oh, I know what to do. I know what to do, right? And we're just going to give that gentle global reminder. That's so helpful. Thank you for sharing what worked for you, right? We're gonna talk about what works for us and remind ourselves that what works for one of us isn't necessarily going to work for all babies, all mamas, all families. Okay. We're gonna make sure that no camps develop in our group. Again, this never happens, you guys. Mamas love to come in. We have mamas who are gonna breastfeed no matter what, right? Who just, no matter what happens, they will not move to formula. They just will not do it. We have mamas who have formula fed from the beginning because they know that it's best for them. They feel like it's best for their babies. We have these mamas who have very differing views of something that can be very, very, very camping, right? Or dividing, and they still support each other in group. Mamas want to come in and support each other. But we as the facilitator, we want to make sure that this is not developing, that we do not in any way have, you know, sleeping camps, right? There's only one way to have your baby sleep. We don't have camps for feeding, that we have different experiences, different choices, and we continue to reiterate this message that we're all different and we're here to support what works for one mama. And we've talked a lot about intrusive thoughts. The most important thing in group, right? If a mama starts to bring up her specific intrusive thought, which I can't think of a time that's ever happened, right? A mom might say, I have intrusive thoughts, or I'm having scary thoughts. She's probably not going to use the word intrusive. I'm having really scary thoughts. Good for her for bringing that up. We can talk about the fact that we're generally having scary thoughts and how we deal with scary thoughts, but we don't necessarily want to encourage a mama to share her specific thought, because those thoughts can be planted in other people's heads and become scary for somebody else. If it does happen, we never, ever, 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 ever shame anybody. Okay. We're never going to say, oh my God, don't say that. We'll never do that. Okay. We might say, oh my gosh, we're so sorry you're dealing with that. We're going to normalize the intrusive thoughts in general, try to make it more general. Okay. And we're going to keep checking in with the mamas just to make sure everybody seems like they're doing okay. And we're going to move forward, right? Never zip somebody up for talking. So again, we can skip this slide. If somebody does verbalize that they're having risky thoughts, okay, the most important thing is that we stay calm and we think about taking care of the mother in the group. And with the next slide, you got a couple choices here, okay? Again, the only time this has ever happened in our group, it was before group even started. Okay, but you have two choices. You have the choice to, especially if you have a co-facilitator and you're doing an online group, to pull that mama into a breakout room and to talk to her separately right there in the moment. All right, this wouldn't work now for us in our group because we only do one facilitator at a time, right? So if she did verbalize something, the most important thing is we would keep her in the room, right? We would say, we know you're sorry you're feeling this way. We know the whole group is sorry, you know, and do you feel cool to like chill here with the group, right? And, you know, God, she's experiencing a lot of pain. I'm going to take care of her after the group, ensure she's okay, right? And then we might move into like, let's all talk about how we're going to take care of ourselves today. How can we take care of ourselves when we're really sad? And then we make sure that the group knows and that mama knows that we're going to pull her, we're going to keep her there to talk to her at the end of group to assess her and make sure she's okay. In a crazy emergency, obviously you're going to keep that mama and you might end the group early. Never happened to us, but that, you know, you're going to take the steps that are necessary in that moment. So take care of yourselves, ladies. This is hard work, right? Deep breaths, self-compassion. Please have a support system. Take care of yourselves. You're not always going to walk into group feeling like you have it within you to do this today. I know sometimes I have a really hard day and I'm running group and I'm like, oh God, I can't believe I have to do this today. Almost all of the time, it fills my pitcher. It helps me to help others. Okay. But we do want to make sure that we are doing some good self-care outside of group, right? And if we're having a really tough day and we just don't feel like we can do it, ideally we have somebody else who's our co-facilitator who could come in for us if we need it. But self-care is essential. Yep. So this takes a long time. It can take up to 2 years to feel like your group is actually rocking and rolling. You're going to have a lot of waxing and waning. You're going to have, just like we have in our group, we're going to have times when we got a lot of mamas. You're going to have times when we don't have a lot. It's very tempting to personalize this and try to figure out what you're doing wrong, right? Even with all of us, we're like, what are we doing? Why do we not have enough people? Over these years, we've learned that it's just the way it goes. Okay, it's nothing you're doing wrong at all. Maybe you want to do another mailing. Maybe you want to do a little social media stuff, but times of year, right? This time of year, back to school, there's oftentimes mamas kind of not showing up for a little bit of time. So expect the possibility that nobody's going to show up. And I love this. If nobody shows up, do something good for yourself in that hour. Use that time for self-care. And it is very important, if you possibly can, to plan for times of poor attendance and not start and stop the group. Like some groups over the years have kind of stopped running because they haven't gotten moms, which is, if that has to happen, that has to happen, obviously. But ideally, we're going to keep sitting in that room or keep sitting in that Zoom space until people do show. Because there's nothing worse than a mama thinking they're coming to group and have it being canceled. All right.
Okay, so I'm going to stop sharing. Now, there's really no easy way to do this other than maybe those moms who are our participants have their cameras on, and then everybody else has their cameras off. I think that would be the easiest way, so we kind of know who is part of our support group, because there'll be the faces on the screen. Everybody who offered to participate should have gotten a personal chat from me, along with my fellow PSI ladies, because I assigned you member roles as well. So we'll kind of just wait a few minutes. I know, Annie, I sent you one. I'm trying to think. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. I should have one more. I think we're okay. All right, so we're gonna have, there we are. There's our 8, perfect. So yeah, so basically what we're gonna do is we're gonna kind of cue this in as we've all just entered the support group, where we did kind of what we did at the beginning. We've all kind of set our highs, and now we're getting to the actual start. So our support group facilitator is Erin, and our co-facilitator is Kara. Beautiful. So now we're all in this room. I'm also going to kind of take a role as we go through this, and we're just going to take what we've learned so far. We're going to go through the process. We might jump in just to kind of, as PSI, tend to change the flow, but I think for the most part, we'll be able to just play our roles, run a group. All right, here we go.
So Sarah, I don't need to do introductions. You want to pretend we've already all gone around and done that
Nope,
piece of it.
nope. I'm just saying, like, it would have been like, if you're doing the group in person, everybody kind of walked in. I might have been like, oh, hey, Martha, but then sat down. Okay. We might have some new members. So you're going to officially start the group right now.
Hi, welcome. I'm so glad you guys are here today. For those of you who are new, or those of you who are not, we're going to go around and just do a quick introduction of your first name and the first name of your kiddos and their ages. So I'm Erin, and I have 2 boys. They are no longer babies. Evan is 15 and Drew is 12. And this is Kara. She's my co-facilitator today.
Hi, I'm Kara. My baby is a furry dog, and he is 1.5 years old.
Okay.
Welcome.
Thanks. I'll go next. So I'm Sarah. I have a 2-month-old baby, and my husband he's told me he wanted to leave me about 2 weeks ago. So I'm a single mom of a 2-month-old.
I'm glad you're here, Sarah.
Thank you.
Hi, I'm Marie. I have a 4-week-old daughter, Kristen. This is my first baby, and I'm happy to be here with you all today.
Welcome, Marie. We're glad you're here.
Annie. I have a 6-week-old boy. His name is Tony, and I have to go back to work tomorrow, and I'm really freaked out.
We're glad you're here, Annie. It has to be hard.
Thanks.
Hi, I'll go next. I'm Martha, and I have 2 kiddos. I have Ben, who is 2 years old, and Kaylee, who is 6 months old, and they're both breastfeeding. So that's got me feeling a little bit touched out lately.
I can imagine, Martha. We're glad you're here.
Hi, I'm Melissa. I have my youngest, his name is Wesley, he's a couple weeks old now.
Melissa.
Hi, and I'm Misha. I'm a first-time mom of a little girl, Aurora, who is 2 weeks old.
Hey, Misha, we're glad you're here. So it feels like a lot of new babies are in our group today. And there were some pretty big things that were said in the first few minutes of introductions. So the group is open for talking. It's also open for listening. So is there anybody who's here today that wants to start and wants to talk about what's going on?
Has anybody?
I do. I've decided to formula feed. Like I said, she's only 2 weeks and I'm having a really hard time with breastfeeding, and I don't feel like I have a big enough supply, and it's just really hard. And so I'm switching to formula, but I'm really scared. I don't know if it's the right thing to do. I don't know if I should keep trying. All my family, we were all formula fed, so there's not much support there. So I don't even know who to turn to, but like, she's really gassy, and I know it's only 2 weeks, but I don't know if I'm doing this right. I'm feeling kind of bad mom vibes for switching and not sticking it through. So I don't know what to do.
Has anybody else gone through that transition? I know, Martha, you said that you are breastfeeding.
Yeah, go with the formula. Oh my gosh. I don't know. I'm the wrong person to ask right now because sorry. It's so hard. It's so much work, and I guess do what's best for you and for your baby, but there's no shame or guilt in choosing formula.
Oh, Misha, I agree with you too. I am so tired. I've been trying to get this breastfeeding thing going for 4 weeks now, and I am just averaging, 4 hours of sleep a night, and I have had those same feelings too, where I just felt like, I just needed to quit and move over to formula. But I'm feeling a lot of pressure from my family to keep going with the breastfeeding. So I'm trying
because they might not stop.
I know, and it's so hard when you're so tired to try and just, navigate everybody's advice and your own feelings and where you're at. And I know what it's like to get input from your family. What about, do you have a partner? Have you talked to your partner about it? Because I've done that myself, and I found that to be a little bit more helpful in just trying to figure out where I'm at and where we're at as a family.
They don't want me to stop. They want me to keep trying. I think they're just over having to get up to feed because they want me to do it. They don't want to have to wake up and take over feeding. And so it's easier if I just kept breastfeeding, because then like it would be on me versus having to like share. And it's been like, he goes back to work tomorrow because our 2 weeks are up with him being on maternity leave. And so I would rather stick with formula. So I'm really torn because we've been fighting like every day because he wants me to keep trying, but it's too hard. I can't. I feel like I should, then I don't know.
I've been struggling. Sorry, my husband decided to mow the lawn right when I told him I was joining a support group. So if you hear the lawnmower, that's why. But I've been struggling with my son. And my other two, I formula fed, and I wanted to breastfeed so badly with this one. And it's been a struggle. I feel guilty. I don't want to be the only one that feeds him. I need help. Like I just don't want to be the only one that feeds him. I need some time to myself. It's a constant thing that I'm doing, whether pumping or holding him, and I get no time to myself, and it hurts. And the doctor in the hospital had like made a comment like, would you rather feed your baby copper? Would you rather feed your baby gold? And I just really feel like I know it's good and I know it's what is best, but I don't know if it's what's best for me. So I'm really struggling. I know my husband doesn't care if I do formula feeding or breastfeeding, but it's just, it's me. But I don't know what I'm looking for. Sometimes I feel like I just need permission for someone to say it's okay. And when you feel that, it feels intense sometimes. So, I'm just.
And that's why you're here, right? Because we say it's okay. We say that whatever you're doing is what is best for you is okay.
It's good hearing other
Melissa,
people are
I
kind
think
of
we're
dealing
sharing
with
a
that.
brain.
Yeah.
I think we're sharing a brain. Everything you said, I was like, oh my God, like is she in my head right now?
Yeah, my brain.
Sarah, you brought up something that was pretty significant as well. It sounds like you have a shock and a huge change happening in your life. Do you want to talk a little bit about it?
Yeah, I mean, I'm just like really overwhelmed, and I am breastfeeding, but it was still nice because I could pump and he was there and he could help with feedings. And then, I mean, I don't really know what it was, but he had enough. He just thought it was too much, and he left. He just literally left one day. And yeah, it's hard because now I have to make all those really tough decisions. I have to go back to work soon. So I keep thinking maybe it will be easier for me just to formula feed so I don't have to overwhelm myself at work with pumping, so that I don't have to, pump and give him milk when he takes the baby. And I just don't even know. I don't even know where to start. And my fur babies are in the background barking.
Annie, I heard you say that you have to go back to work soon.
Yeah, I feel weird about talking because I feel like I want to talk more about Sarah, but I am really, because she seems to have like a worse problem with her partner leaving. Sorry you're going through that, Sarah, but yeah, has anybody gone back to work? I've only been off for 6 weeks and I don't have a choice because I need to go back for money and I'm the only person working in my family. So, and I am breastfeeding and I haven't even like pulled out my pump. I don't even know how to pump. And I don't know if I'll get time to pump. So I don't really know what to do. And I think I just wasn't really thinking about this happening. So it feels kind of, like I just have not prepared. So has anybody done this before? If any of you have older children, have you had to do this before? Have you gone to work? Help.
I haven't. I was seeing my older children. I was able to stay home the first 3 years, but with this one, I know I'm going to be going back in another 9 weeks. So, I'm right there with you as far as, making that transition for the first time, how that's going to work and just the feelings associated with that and not being there. Like I already feel like some sort of way of not being there for 2 years, being with them. So definitely right there with you with those questions.
Thank you.
Yeah, I feel the same. I think that of everything that's happening, I think I'm most anxious about that because, I feel like I can, kind of control certain things right now, but I feel like when I'm back at work and, not with my baby all day, like I can't control that. And I don't know what to do.
Annie, I'm a couple weeks behind you, but I just, the amount of like tiredness that I'm feeling and the lack of sleep. I mean, how are you navigating that and thinking about going back to work? Are you finding that you're getting any more sleep because your baby's a little bit older? I mean, I just don't see any light at the end of the tunnel. I'm just so tired all the time.
Yeah, Marie, I was with you. My baby started sleeping a little better, so I hope that yours does too.
Good.
Yeah, I think it for me got better a couple weeks ago, maybe, and now he's sleeping like 5 or 6 hours in a row. So I think I'm struggling a little bit more to stay asleep because I think I'm just so nervous. But I'm doing my best. I'm trying really hard not to like get in my head too much about sleep. I'm just trying to kind of tell myself it's going to be okay no matter what, no matter how much sleep I get. That's been helpful for me.
Oh God, and does everybody just tell you sleep when the baby sleeps? That makes me crazy.
Yeah, I could never sleep when the baby slept. Because I always had in my head that as soon as I do fall asleep, he's going to wake up. So that would just reinforce my thinking because it would happen. He'd wake up right when I was about to get drowsy. And so then it would just reinforce that, so that I just wouldn't sleep.
I read that our brains permanently change when we have babies, and so we never sleep well again. Maybe
I
that's
would have to
that could be
agree.
true.
I would have to agree. I always joke that you get these mom ears, and I mean, I've only had them for a few weeks, but you hear everything once you have a baby. They cough in the middle of the night, and you wake right up.
Somebody told me that maybe if you use like a sound machine between you and the baby, that you don't hear all those baby noises and you get a little bit better sleep. Has anybody heard that or tried that?
When my kids were little, I had the sound machine, and that seemed to work for them. I will
I
say
always had white
though,
noise background.
yeah,
It makes me fall asleep and it helps.
I will say that it's stuck though, because now they are 12 and 15 and they still require sound machines. And if we travel on vacation, we need either an app on the phone or the sound machine needs to go in the suitcase because they never outgrew it. So
Yeah, I
Martha,
always have to pack a fan.
Martha, I do want to just kind of talk more about what's going on with you. I can see on your face that you're struggling. So let's talk about it.
I don't know. I think I just have a different, I guess, opinion or experience than everybody else. To be honest, going back to work is like a break for me now, and it's like freedom. No one's touching me and grabbing on me and asking for something. Everybody at home is, even my partner. Like, I don't know. And then I hear everybody else and feeling, not wanting to leave their babies, and I
Martha,
know what's wrong, and I'm just different, I guess. But I don't know.
I think the perspective is helpful. I think that if you could, maybe show us some of the reasons why it's good for you and how you can see the other side of it, that could be helpful to people who haven't done it yet and they're struggling.
Even though I feel guilty that I'm going to be leaving him, I also feel guilty because of what you just stated. I feel guilty that I'm going to enjoy it. I feel guilty that I'm going to enjoy going back to work and not having to be bothered all day, and even use that word bothered, like just to kind of have some autonomy and just be by myself and have other people to talk to. I feel guilty on both parts. So it kind of feels like you're damned if you do and you're damned if you don't. You know what I mean? I feel guilty for leaving him, but I also feel guilty because I might enjoy having that time. So kind of.
Yeah. Thank you.
Thank you for sharing that. And I think when I was pregnant, I didn't want my baby. I really wanted to be not pregnant. And I think I felt that like desire to separate myself from him, and it's obviously changed, but I started seeing a therapist who helped me realize that I was really depressed and that was part of my depression, like not wanting this baby. So I don't know I'm not trying to tell you what to do, but if you have anybody just to keep talking about this, because I think what you're talking about is normal, to like want to be away from your kids. Because again, I felt that. And I hope that, I'm glad you felt safe telling us that. But if you want to talk more, I'm happy to talk more outside a group or whatever.
Thank you.
I wish I could leave my baby like you guys are. Like, he's already asking me to take over. And how long have we been on this call? Like 15 minutes? Like, I'm so done with him. Can I run away from him? Like, can he? Like, I'm so through. Like, I'm so through. Like, I think he needs to just live with her for a while.
Yeah.
So done.
Oh, it's hard.
But I'm not in your position, Martha, like obviously of going back to work yet. But I can totally relate potentially with how that feels of like getting excited to leave them. Like, yes, it's hard potentially. But they just need a lot right now. And so I'm through with that. Like, I'm done. Like, so I could totally relate to wanting to go back to work. I don't feel like you're in some strange category of people who like should feel bad about that. I think that everybody's a little bit different, but I can totally relate to that feeling of like, I have 9 weeks left and I don't know how I'm going to do 9 more weeks of this. And he gets to go back tomorrow and I would rather be in his position.
Thank you.
Yeah, Martha, and in the middle of the night when I'm so tired and I've gotten up and nursed and then the baby's fussy and won't go back to sleep, I think to myself, I just want my life to be the way it was before. Just for a little bit of time to just have it be the way it was before. And I hate myself for feeling that way, but I can understand why you might want some of that because I feel that way too.
I feel that way too, Maria. I feel like I just wish my life was the way it was before the baby. It was so much easier. I mean, we were getting along and I don't know. I feel the same.
Sarah, do you have other support around you? Do you have other family or friends that you can lean on?
Yeah, my sister's been really good. She's been kind of coming over, every few days to just kind of make sure, I'm eating because, I keep forgetting to do that. And she helped me take the baby or throw in a load of laundry. So yeah, it's been really nice to have her. And my mom's, close. She's about 45 minutes. So I can call her if I need her.
Good.
Thank you for reminding me of that I have my mom, because I forget that sometimes.
I know when my babies were little, especially my first one, I have always been the boss of everything. I'm always the one who's in charge. And so it was really hard for me to ask for help. I really felt like I shouldn't have to, that he was my child, so that I should be able to do it all on my own. And I felt guilty that I was not able to manage it all by myself. So I am a strong advocate for ask for help. People love you. They want to be there. They want to support you. So, whether it's a big thing or a small thing, it's okay to ask for help. And it's part of that self-care. So
I always felt guilty asking for help for my first two. And I planned ahead for this one and looked at it as a strength. I always thought of it as a weakness to not be able to do it all yourself. To need help to get sleep and whatnot. And I planned this time, like I saw it as a strength, like I'm gonna have things prepared and in place. I asked my mom, my sister, like they come over and even in the middle of the night, they'll sit for several hours with the baby so that I can get sleep. And it was the best, having that outlook for me and changing that shift in it being negative versus positive, it just was so helpful because it is a strength to be able to ask for help and to be able to, not see it as a negative or that you're failing in some area. I think it's a strength of ours. And that's how I look at it for myself. It really shifted the way I look at things, to be able to ask for that help and utilize it, not feel guilty. Because it does, it takes a village. There's so many, I learn about different cultures, and I see there's so many cultures that really like the whole village takes care of you. The first 90 days or the first few months they're there, mom gets catered to, and here in America, it's just so different. We're expected to go back to work right away and to not ask for help and do it all yourself. And this is really not how it is.
To sacrifice and to just, yeah. Sorry.
It's been really good getting together with you guys tonight. It's been really good to have this time to sort of reflect and know none of us are alone. We want to go around really quick before we wrap up for tonight and just think, what's one thing you're going to do for yourself in the next couple of days? Go ahead, Martha. What are you going to do?
Oh, I don't know. I'm going to try to see if I can take a shower alone, even for 10 minutes, see if and it might mean I have to get a babysitter, but I'm going to try to do that.
Marie, how about you?
I don't know. I'm just so tired. I can't even really think of anything. I don't know. Maybe just try and have some quiet time during the day. Even if I can't sleep, just put my feet up and kind of check out for a few minutes on my phone and just kind of be restful if I can't get some sleep.
I think that's a good idea. Melissa, what will it be for you?
Just trying to get my sleep in.
It's important. It's so important. Sarah?
I think that I'm going to maybe to alleviate some of my anxiety about not being home, and the fact that I'm kind of just forgetting to eat. I think I'm going to meal plan. I think I'm going to make a really, really good effort to just plan my meals and what I'm going to eat.
I look forward to hearing some recipes next time we see you.
Okay.
Annie, what will it be for you?
I think I'm going to go to Target today to buy a mall or something to buy myself a new outfit to go back to work tomorrow.
Yes. I like that.
Because I don't fit in any of my old clothes, because who does?
Nobody does. Don't worry about it.
Misha?
I was dreading you picking on me because I have no idea. Like I thought at first, maybe like handing the baby over and not asking, because I always feel like I ask him if he'll take the baby versus just like giving the baby. And then I thought maybe showering consistently. I feel like I'm having a really hard time. I used to take 2 showers a day before having this kid, and now it's hard for me to get into the shower. So many reasons why. I don't know. I don't know if like feedback on which one. I think both would be too much to do.
I don't think that's too much. I think that you hand him the baby, you go take a shower.
It sounds so good.
Lock the door when you get in there.
Okay. I'll do that then.
Kara, do you want to share a little more before we say goodbye to them?
Sure. I'm going to try to take care of myself in drinking more water. I find that I'm forgetting to drink during the day, and I'm like leaving myself dehydrated, getting headaches. So, my goal for self-care is to pay attention to what I'm drinking, try to drink some more water. So that's what I got ahead for me this week. And that's it. Thanks everyone for coming. This has been a wonderful group. That's it.
Yeah. Thank you. See you next week.
Bye, guys.
Bye.
Bye, ladies.
All right. That was amazing. Yay! Everyone did. Thank you, everyone who did participate. That was awesome. If anyone wants to turn their cameras back on, you can. I'm actually going to screen share in a quick second, but does anyone have any questions, comments on kind of what just happened? I know it's a lot to process, but that really went really well. I think you guys got an experience of kind of the different personalities that will come into play in a group. and a lot of the things that will come up. Sleep is a big one. It's huge, especially for pregnant moms. We all know if you have children being pregnant, it's so hard to get comfortable. You're not sleeping well at night. And then when you have that baby, you're not sleeping. So sleep is a big one that gets talked about a lot. That kind of resentment to your partner, like you get to kind of walk away. That's another big thing that gets talked about in group. Melissa, I really appreciated when you were like, yeah, so I asked for 15 minutes and he goes to mow the lawn. I think we all can share stories like that and kind of relate to stories like that, even if it's not necessarily that specific. But a lot of the things that we touched upon are things that are going to come up in group. And Erin, I know at the beginning you shared you were nervous. You were flawless. So you really did a great job as a facilitator. Awesome work.
I've been shadowing somebody a couple times now, and I've kind of gotten the inside scoop on it. So we will give credit to her.
Kara, and how you typed in chat, just don't disvalue who you are as a facilitator because you're not a mother. You are still a facilitator, and that's huge. And you're bringing just as much value and importance to this group, regardless of whether you gave birth to a child or not. So fur babies count. They're important. Everybody loves to talk about their animals. It's a great kind of like if you have that quiet space, especially on Zoom. Cats are jumping on the keyboards, dogs are barking in the background. So it's a great thing to talk about, I think, and it brings like this level of happiness to the group. So thank you for sharing that, but don't be afraid to share that because I think it's just as important.
We had a facilitator for a while at ABC who was not a mom herself, and she was fabulous. She did a great job.
Yeah.
I totally think it is, with the education experience, that it would be fine just navigating through an introduction that would fit the group, at that moment. I think would need just a little practice just to kind of feel out the group and what to say in that moment. Yeah. But I definitely think the work can still be done greatly without the children. So.
Yeah, absolutely. And you did a great job of that. So, awesome. So we're getting some comments in the chat. And like I said, I'm going to kind of take what was in the chat. I'm going to put it in a document and I will share that out with all of you after. I'm also going to create kind of a survey for your input on how this training went. I'm going to send all of that stuff out Monday, but we're not done yet. We still have two really important things to do. We have one of our members shares her personal story, and I had introduced her earlier, but she's not able to be here today. So Amanda is not able to be here, but she did record her story. So I am going to now go back to screen share and I'm going to share her video of her story.
Honey, you can't be up here.
All right, here we go. Let me find this. Oh, there we go. Ah. All right, well, I want to do this.
Hi, attendees. I just want to thank you all for being here. We couldn't have more support groups without your interest and without your help.
Can you all hear that okay? I mean, I know it's a little soft. You might need to turn your volume up, but is her volume coming through?
Yes, her volume's coming through.
Perfect, thank you.
All for being here. We couldn't have more support groups without your interest and without your help. And I want to thank the presenters in PSI Connecticut for these trainings. It's with their work that the state of Connecticut has gone from 1 or 2 support groups in the entire state over the last 8 or so years to several free trainings, with one happening almost every day of the week. So thank you for your hard work and your tireless volunteerism. Before I begin my story, I just want to share 2 incredible statistics that I found with the mentalhealthnational.org and the World Health Organization International. The 2 organizations reported over 1.5 million people took the mental health screening this past year from January to September, and they saw a 62% increase in the depression screen and a 93% increase in the anxiety screens, rates higher than pre-COVID, and with screens over 8 in 10 of which had moderate to severe symptoms. I can't help but wonder, with all of these screens, how many of them were perinatal women? Just think for a minute. The World Health Organization reported in over 130 countries from June to August alone last year, they saw a 61% disruption of critical health services, and those were in women requiring antenatal or postnatal services. So you can just imagine right now the need that we're in for these support groups more than ever. So with that, I will tell you a little bit of my story. So Sharon Thomason and Annie Keating Shearer started the Adjustment to Baby Challenges support group about 8 years ago or so. And when I met them, the idea of being a facilitator was furthest from my mind. In fact, I never thought about running a group. I'm not a psychologist or a counselor. And for my background, I have a bachelor's degree in drama, a master's in science and English, pending certification to teach secondary education, and I have over 13 years in human resources management. So in my years of schooling, I've taken psychology courses here and there, depending on where I was in my degrees. I've mediated problems between employees, and I've resolved labor disputes. I have, even as I'm sure many of you have found yourselves in the middle of mediating family complaints and absorbing and listening to friends and family members' issues that may arise. And sometimes in the back of your mind, you're probably thinking, oh, I wish I wasn't here, but there's a reason they're coming to you, right? So what qualifies you to be a facilitator, right? What qualifies me? What is my why? I really had to think about this before I became a facilitator. I really had to think, okay, I'm open and an objective listener. I have an ability to be neutral. I'm empathetic, non-judgmental, and I care. And I have a desire to help other women and families. And I think sometimes the desire to help and care is more important than anything else. Over 8 years ago, I was diagnosed with postpartum depression after having my first child. I never thought it would happen to me, right? Career woman, got it going on, and I never thought it would happen. I went to an almost all-female obstetrics and gynecological office. I was attended by all women throughout my labor and delivery except my husband, and had what I felt to be a somewhat traumatic delivery. And when I say traumatic, to sum it up really briefly, it was a leak, a slow leak that started somewhere between a Wednesday and Friday, going to the hospital on Friday and not delivering until Sunday morning, following strep B and infection, and several days with my daughter in the NICU thereafter. And my nurse, I remember coming in afterwards and asking me how things were going, and I was really teary, and I said I might need someone to talk to, I might need a little something. And I remember her saying that she would let my doctor know, and then nothing else happened. So in all of my follow-ups with my doctors, I answered positive to everything. I went through all of the classic symptoms, depressive symptoms that you could think of, even though I answered positive on the screen and everything you saw in the video today. It wasn't until almost 6 months later that I realized what was my baby blues hadn't left, and I couldn't fight it off. And I went to my OB, who again tested me, and at the time had only 2 referrals for me. So she sent me to counseling and put me on medication. Now I have to say, since then, several years later, they have awakened to the needs of women and have added more services to their roster. But at the time, there were only 2. And so after she had put me on medication and I'd started seeing a counselor, I thought, because I'm taking medication now, I must be really crazy. And I kept saying, though, that I was going to beat this, and in time I was going to be well. Well, I stayed with the Adjustment to Baby Challenges support circle for under a year. I traveled to West Hartford from Cheshire for an 8 a.m. meeting once a week, every week, with my 8-month-old in tow. And I did this until I knew I was well. So how did I know I was well, right? Well, I was no longer on medication. My self-care was what I felt was optimal, and I was confident and could handle everything that could come my way without a meltdown. So to speak and with greater understanding and acceptance of what I went through, I was able to talk about it, and I truly felt like I was well again. Even though I was well, I kept following that year, attending meetup groups, support groups. I followed through on other groups that weren't therapy, but resource groups, and meeting with other moms and play dates, educating myself and listening to other moms. And generally, I would listen to other moms and hear their experiences and find out that all they wanted to be was heard. Their good times, their bad times. It was around that moment was when Sharon asked me if I would be interested in becoming a facilitator. And I truly welcomed it. There's a saying by Ralph Waldo Emerson that thought is the seed of action. Well, Sharon planted that little seed in my mind, and I knew that I wanted to help women and help them through the same types of things that I had gone through. So over the last few years now, I've been a facilitator with the ABC group, and I had started one in Southington for a while. And when I run my group, every time I introduce myself, I'm putting myself out there. So every group is different. None operate the same, with the exception of the introductions and the rules. Being a facilitator is everything that was talked about today. It's being a strong listener and attentive observer. It's about making sure that every woman is heard and her feelings are acknowledged. It's being empathetic, so important. Let's talk about what being empathetic means for a moment. Let's say you hear something that moves you in some way, or you can relate to it, right? So let's face it, right? I'm a woman, and for me, maybe depending on the time of month it is, I could be feeling a certain way, right? Maybe I'm angry, maybe I'm bitter, maybe I really had a rough day, but I don't let my personal emotions overrun into the group, because at the moment in the group, it's not about me. When a topic comes up that moves me, that's when I really need to take a deep breath. And I listen harder and more intently, and then ask those open-ended questions. And when it's over, it's good to talk and debrief with other facilitators and ask, how did the meeting go and how did you feel about it? And check in with yourself and your partner there and those you facilitate with. And if you don't have a partner that you facilitate with, call another facilitator and say, hey, I really need to hash out how I feel about today's meeting. Do you have a second? And that's when you need to take care of yourself. Taking care of yourself is so important. Self-care is what we talk about in every meeting. And to be a strong facilitator, it's really important that you take care of yourself, because that's what you're imparting on the group as well. And you'll see an improvement in women that come over time. And some come back just to say, hi, I'm doing great today, which is so encouraging to other women in the group. When they are doing great and in full swing, invite them to become a facilitator. Be leader in other groups. Have them start their own group. We need it so much. The creation of 1,000 forests is in one acorn. Another Ralph Waldo Emerson favorite, right? So let me leave you with these thoughts, that pregnancy and postpartum period is a journey. Birthing a life starts inside, but supporting it never ends. What you can do for one woman and a group could mean a lifetime of positive for her and her family and her children. So please go out and talk, share, and go out and plant your forests. Thank you for being a part of this. Have a great day.
All right, so let's let that kind of sink in. Amanda is amazing. And I'm so happy that she shared just kind of that piece along kind of how Kara is, shared that she was uncomfortable maybe not being a mom. I kind of, in my own journey, felt very uncomfortable not being a therapist. I started this training and I don't have a professional background in that. I work for a local municipality with kids every day. So starting this support group was important for me because of my own experience, and I wanted to provide a place for moms to talk. And I've never felt that held me back, not being a therapist. I've, had great moments being a facilitator. It helps to know a lot of great therapists. And like Annie said, we got a lot of them here on this panel right now. So our email addresses again are on that first slide. And if you ever have a question, I think it's important, again, the PSI coordinators in Connecticut, those are all found on that Connecticut chapter for PSI. There's a list of the coordinators. So if you have a mom in Fairfield County that might need a therapist, use those coordinators. You can reach out to them yourself. You can have the mom reach out to the coordinators. But they're wonderful, and they know these therapists and these resources that are throughout the state of Connecticut to kind of help these moms in additional ways. And we're always here to help. That's literally what we do. So I know we don't have a ton of time left, but I just want to take just the last little 9 minutes that we have. I do want to be very, aware of the time. We've spent a long time together today. But if anybody had any questions or wanted to talk further about something that we did, or just, kind of share anything, that's really what we're here for. So if you do, please feel free to just kind of jump in with a question. Oh, perfect. Yeah. So in the chat, I just also want to mention that if you are a provider, it was a direct chat to me. I'm sorry, everyone's kind of looking. If you are a provider, PSI has a provider directory. So please feel free to contact one of us to add your name to that directory. It's a really neat tool that the coordinators use to make referrals to different therapists in Connecticut. So the PSI directory is awesome if this is the type of work that you do. So please go to the website. You can add your information to that, and then you'll be on that PSI directory. And you can also use that directory once you're on it to get in touch with other professionals. It's just a really neat resource to have. So, all right, anybody have anything? Does anyone want to say anything? Do you have a question for any of us specifically that we could answer or go into more detail about?
Sarah, you had asked me to just clarify how I handle the hybrid group. So,
yeah, that's great.
It's not truly a hybrid group. I'm not doing in-person and Zoom at the same time. I'm doing either or. And basically I do that by, in my email notification of the upcoming group, I'll say this week we're going to meet in person. We're meeting at Harkness Memorial Park in Waterford. It's same time, same day. It's just whether or not we're in person or we're Zoom. So not like I'm doing both at the same time. I'm doing one or the other, but I have tried to go back and forth because moms do seem to like to do the in-person group every now and then. So if you have a great spot that you can meet with people outside and your members feel comfortable, I would encourage you to do so. And some moms like the Zoom better, and it just depends on the mom and the day.